Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to CB3 Land Use Committee meeting for Tuesday, May 17, 2022. My name is Jackie Wong. I'm the chair of this committee. We are conducting the meeting through Zoom, and I want to give you guys a brief introduction and some Zoom guidelines. First of all, everyone, please sign in the chat so I know who you are. And then you can use the chat for asking technical questions, but try not to put your opinions or comments in the chat. For those who never joined our meetings before, after the presentations, I'll let the committee members to ask questions or make comments first. Following that is the public session where public members can ask questions or comments. And if anyone wants to speak tonight, please raise your hands and also get called by the chairperson before you speak. This is to and just to maintain the order of the meeting, and it applies to both committee members and public. Before I start the agenda items, I want to ask if any new community board members are with us tonight. If yes, please raise your hand. I noticed the board president just made an announcement about the new appointments. Joshua, so first of all, welcome to your first community board meeting. Can you give a brief introduction about yourself so we know who you are?
Sure. Thank you, Jackie. My name is Joshua Waterman. I'm lived in the East Village for the past 7 years. I actually live on 14th Street between Avenue B and C. So I look forward to this evening's agenda as it also pertains to my cooperative. I'm definitely looking forward to getting to know you all and being more involved. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Our first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes for our April meetings. So let me know if anyone have problems or we just approve it. Okay, see no hands, no questions. The minutes are approved. Our second item on the agenda is regarding the review. We are going to review the Campos Plaza 1 and 2 non-ULURP LSRD modification. So this project is about modifying the LSRD to allow transferring of air rights from Campos Plaza 1 and 2 to a neighboring lot to develop a 24-story building. Jim Shelton, Jim, let me see. Are you here?
He's here.
Yeah, Jackie, I'm here. I am not going to share my screen. Someone from the development team will, but I'm happy to I'm going to give an introduction and we'll kick things off. So just let me know whenever you want to get started.
Actually, I need to go back a little bit. I think there's something very important I forgot. We need to do the attendance. Usually in the past, Lisa did the attendance, so I kind of forget that. Sorry about that. So I need to do the attendance for the committee. Jackie Wong is here. Herman Hewitt. Herman.
I'm here.
Thank you, Herman. Trevor.
Present.
Olympia Cassie.
Here.
Thank you, Damaris Rias. Okay, not here. Anisha Stephen.
Here.
Thank you, Dominic Bird.
Here.
Thank you, Steve Herrick.
Here.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, great. And then we are going to do the Campos Plaza. So Jim, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, I won't be sharing my screen. I'm just going to be kicking off everything with a little bit of a spoken introduction. Nora, will you be sharing, or someone from your team?
Yes. Should I share now while you're speaking?
Yeah, it's okay. I think whenever you're ready. But I'm happy to kick things off. Jackie, let me know if it's okay to start getting into things.
Yeah, you can start and introduce yourself, please, Jim.
Okay. Thanks for being here, everyone. My name's Jim Shelton. I know a lot of you from years of work at the community board. I work in the real estate division at NYCHA, and my title is community planner. So I work really closely with NYCHA residents whenever there's a real estate project going on, and we try to work on ways to make residents' priorities kind of front and center in those processes. So the project that you're here to review tonight, let me give a little context setting and stage setting for this. So Campos Plaza 1 and Campos Plaza 2 on 13th Street between B and C, that was developed as one campus, as one project. And it was an urban renewal area, and there was a large scale residential development established in LSRD, which you all know well, is basically a zoning tool that allows more flexibility when doing master site planning for multi-building residential developments. Some of you may remember that I actually presented on this topic as part of a larger discussion at the NYCHA subcommittee last October. I was presenting on a bigger plan we have to bring in really significant investment and renovations to Campos Plaza 2 through a number of funding streams that we're working on to create kind of a comprehensive and community-driven process led by the residents at Campos Plaza 2, and really to put their priorities forward in how the funding and investment we're bringing in there will be used. So this piece that we're here to talk about tonight is part of that plan. And I briefly talked about it last fall. And the piece that's important to understand is it's the sale of unused air rights or development rights from the NYCHA owned part of the development to a privately owned neighboring development site at 644 East 14th Street. So that's on the corner of 14th and Avenue C, right next to Campos Plaza 2. So the proceeds from that air rights sale would be used exclusively for repairs or programming at Campos Plaza 2. The programming and use of those funds that we would get from the sale would move through a resident planning process where we essentially would develop a plan in conjunction with the NYCHA residents for how best to prioritize and use the investment that's coming in. And we're excited about that. It's a really significant opportunity, and it could really bring some high quality improvements to Campos Plaza 2. At NYCHA, we've been meeting with the TA leadership, both from Campos Plaza 2 and Campos Plaza 1, because they are neighbors and it was originally developed as one campus. We've been having public meetings with the larger resident body since last summer to talk about these details. We came to CB3 last October, like I mentioned. And in addition to that, there's really been a process of negotiation where NYCHA has really been working to make sure that the resident leaders and other residents' concerns are represented in any discussions or planning with the private property owner at 644 East 14th Street. So we've had a lot of meetings where we sat down at the table with a tenant association leadership from both buildings, their legal counsel, the owners and development team from 644 East 14th Street, and a number of local elected officials' offices over a number of months to hash out project details, identify resident-facing commitments that the resident leadership wanted to see, that it's responsive to the needs and priorities of residents at Campos Plaza, and find a way to memorialize those so they're actually followed through on. And that's been ongoing for many months now. But we're at a point where we're ready to move forward with at least the TDR, the transfer of development rights part of the project, and that's what we're here to discuss tonight. And basically, there's a land use action here. So all of this is within an LSRD, which means that we are required to execute a land use action to modify that LSRD. We can't move NYCHA's air rights without doing that. So to move NYCHA's air rights to the new development in exchange for the funding for Campos repairs, we have to do this action. We filed the land use action with DCP. The city planning commission reviewed the application at a review session and referred it out to you for comment, and that's what we're here for tonight. I think with that, the development team really is going to present the real the meat and potatoes here of what the project actually looks like. But I just wanted to do that little context setting and explain what we've been doing on NYCHA's side to work with the residents so far throughout this process. And I'll be here to answer any questions about that throughout the night. Nora, I think if you want to take over from
Yeah,
here, or whoever from your team will be speaking, feel free to jump in.
Sure, let me just share my screen here. It looks like it's disabled.
Yeah, I can make you co-host. What is your name?
Nora, well, it might be under Eleanor Martins.
Under what?
E. Martins.
Okay, let me look.
I'm sorry, Lisa, you had a hand before. Did you have any question?
Yeah, my question was just, am I being considered tonight a member of this committee based on the fact that my name was sent out as a member of the community board this afternoon?
Susan, would you like to,
No, Paul and I were told that there was a list of people who did not reapply, which included Lisa. And so I just emailed the BP's office to tell them they made a mistake on the list.
Right, but I have a press release from the borough president saying I am a member.
I can't speak to that.
Well, I would like to argue that the press release from the borough president's office takes precedence.
I'm not arguing one way or another. I can't speak to it.
Oh, okay. So Jackie, I guess the decision then is in your hands.
well, if that's the case, I would consider Lisa as a committee member for this particular month. And I mean, first of all, Lisa, do you want to be a committee member for this particular month?
Yes.
Then I'll consider you as a member. And then next month, I guess after they clear out what's happened with the BP's office, then we decide what to do.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I'm sorry.
Why are we seeing this presentation? Are we supposed to be on screen to see a 644? We're seeing something from Madison Realty Capital screen?
I'm sorry. Can you, because they are going to do the presentation, can anyone mute, please?
Yeah, I will mute. I just wondered if we were supposed to see it yet.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I wanted to make sure.
No,
I
we were just,
could see it, so. thank
Okay, I'll mute, of course.
yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
you. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Nora Martins. I'm from Ackerman LLP, and I'm a land use attorney representing the private owner and developer applicant here, Madison Realty Capital. Just quick introductory slide. Madison Realty Capital is the owner and developer of 644 East 14th Street, which is the privately owned parcel adjacent to the Campos Plaza development that will be seeking to acquire the development rights to facilitate development of the site. This slide shows some similar mixed income rental projects that Madison Realty Capital has recently completed of similar or larger scale to the proposed building here. These buildings all included both market rate and affordable units as is proposed here. Just a quick slide to show some photos of the surrounding area. I'm sure you're all familiar, but you can see the top left photo is the development site, which is located on the corner of East 14th Street and Avenue C. It's currently an open construction site with no improvement. So quick background, I know Jim Shelton gave a great overview of the context here, but just a little more detail. In 1969, there was an herbal renewal area established and a plan and project approval and a large scale residential development approval in order to build the Campos 1 and 2 buildings. 1972, there was a modification of that large scale residential development and bulk waivers to construct 4 buildings here with 493 total units. 1980, there was a minor change to the urban renewal area and the site plan. In 1983, there was a sliver parcel of Campos 2, which you'll see in the next slide, but a tiny little parcel that was conveyed to an adjacent private property owner. That change was never reflected on the large scale plan or the modification to the zoning lot, so this application will correct that. 2009, the urban renewal area expired, so no longer applies to this site, but the large scale approval, of course, remains. And in 2020, Madison Realty Capital purchased the property located at 644 East 14th Street. So the requested action that we have before your committee today is a non-ULURP modification to reflect certain changes to the large scale residential development that currently applies to Campos 1 and 2, including exclusion of the conveyed sliver of land on the northwestern boundary of the large scale residential development. So that land was already conveyed. It just was never reflected in the zoning lot. The second item is inclusion of the development site, which you can see in this drawing is shown in yellow on the corner of East 14th Street and Avenue C. Inclusion of that development site within the large scale residential development. Merging the Campos 1 and 2 zoning lot together with the development site. This is required in order to actually transfer the development rights to 644 East 14th Street. That transfer would be approximately 108,000 square feet of floor area to the development site. And then finally, the modification to the large scale residential development would reflect construction of a new building on the development site. This plan shows the existing waivers that were granted in order to build the Campos 1 and 2 buildings back in 1972. You have a height and setback waiver on both Campos 1 and 2. You have a waiver of distance between buildings at Campos 2, and then a waiver of rear yard requirements at Campos 2. Important to note that the proposed development, while it will use floor area transferred from Campos 1 and 2, will not require any new bulk waivers or modifications, would be built as of right in compliance with the bulk and use restrictions in the existing zoning, which is R7, an R7-2 zoning district. And it doesn't in any way affect the waivers that were previously granted to Campos 1 and 2. This slide shows in extremely magnified detail the tiny sliver of property you can see up on the right in the middle of the red sliver. It's about 2 feet wide. That property that was conveyed by NYCHA to the adjacent private developer to the private property to the west back in 1980. That correction that will be made to the zoning lot and the large scale approval as part of this application. I'm going to turn it over now for the next few slides to Ben Abelman from FX Collaborative, the project architect, to walk you through the evolution of the design of the building, as you know, in response to feedback we received from the tenants and from others in the community.
Thanks, Nora. You know, I think Jim did a very good job kind of giving you guys an overview of the process that we have all gone through to get to this point. You know, the project really has been an evolution and has been a result of collaboration discussion between the private developer of 644 East 14th Street and NYCHA and its residents. You know, we've conducted a number of in-person meetings over the past year where we presented designs and really negotiated the height and size of the proposed building. And as Nora said, the proposed building is as of right in terms of its height and setback. It complies with a sky exposure plane. But we have, through the special permit, the modification of the special permit, have capped the building height. So what you see here on the left is just an image of what the as of right development could be on the site. A small building which could be set back and really get up to about 234 feet in height with a base that could be filled out with community facility. With the purchase of development rights, the notion of the large community facility base gives way to providing more residential floor area and providing more units at this location. Originally, the project was slated to utilize all of the available development rights within the Campos Plaza property, or the vast majority, let me say. And in order to do that, we needed to achieve a height of 251 feet. But through kind of discussion and through the kind of debate over the trade-offs of revenue versus height, we've come to the agreement with the residents in NYCHA that 234 feet in height and 24 stories was the appropriate height. And that resulted really in a reduction of about 9,000 square feet of purchased air rights from NYCHA. So as currently planned, this proposed development would purchase 108,000 square feet of floor area from NYCHA, and the remainder of that 143,000 total residential area would be generated by the site itself. Next slide, please. You know, in kind of thinking about the site and its location on, you know, at the intersection of two wide streets on the far east end of Manhattan, you know, height is, our belief is that the height here is appropriate. The, you know, gradient of heights from the adjacent Campos Plaza building stepping up towards the intersection of Avenue C and East 14th Street is seen here and reflected in with the blue arrow. So the building directly to the west is 157. It steps up to our proposed building at the corner of Avenue C and East 14th to 234. And then as further as the, you know, arrow shows, the stacks of the power station further east go up to 400 feet. And similarly to the south, we have a gradient of buildings stepping up to this height. So we believe that the proposed building is appropriate at its location of the intersection of two wide streets and really creates an anchor on this corner. Next, please. So here's just an image of a rendering of how the building will look. You know, the inspiration for the design as it currently stands is for it to really not be kind of a different materiality from its adjacent context, but to really look to the adjacent context for the material inspiration. You know, we're not proposing an all glass building here. You know, this would have a pretty good proportion of glazing to masonry, which also helps with energy performance and helps it really, you know, fit in with its context. At the base of the building, we're proposing to pick up some of the some of the inspiration from the way that the bases of the existing Campos Plaza buildings are colored with a darker band at the bottom, so that the building not only, you know, sits within the urban context, but sits well within the immediate context and fits within the NYCHA campus. Next slide, please. And so really most importantly, in, you know, how the community and circulating around the site will experience the building is really through on the ground floor uses and how those interact with the public realm in the street. The proposed building will be set back 10 feet from the property line in order to accommodate the alternate setback sky exposure plane. And then on East 14th Street, there will be the residential lobby, which will be slightly higher than the grade of the adjacent curb, being that the site is located within a flood hazard zone, which requires us to elevate the ground floors of buildings. Retail will be located on the corner of East 14th Street and Avenue C, you know, creating some vibrancy on that corner. And then the remainder of the ground floor will be given way to a community facility space, which the developer will work with NYCHA to think about programming. Next, and so here's just a conceptual sketch of how that ground floor use will look. So at the intersection at the streets, we will have a widened sidewalk experience with the building set back 10 feet, and really, you know, is set in line with the way that the Campos Plaza buildings further to the south are relating to the street. The uses again will provide a vibrancy and activate the street corner, which has sat vacant for some years.
Thanks, Ben. I'll just conclude our presentation with just sum up the details of the transaction. As Ben said, Madison Realty Capital is seeking to purchase up to 108,616 square feet of air rights from Campos Plaza 1 and 2 to build a 24-story building would contain approximately 166 rental units, of which approximately 50 or 30% would be affordable. The the floor layouts and the unit distributions are still being worked out in very preliminary stages, but those are the numbers that we have now, along with, of course, the potential ground floor retail and community facility space to be programmed, in consultation with NYCHA and the tenants. Benefits of this transaction include, first and foremost, the development rights sale, which will generate much needed revenue for NYCHA. And that will not just be revenue for NYCHA, but would, as Jim mentioned, would fund repairs, capital improvements, and even programming exclusively for the benefit of Campos Plaza 2. The proposed development would enhance the pedestrian experience for both Campos Plaza and the surrounding community with new ground floor retail and community facility uses, active use, lighting, and new street trees. The project would provide additional affordable housing units pursuant to the Affordable New York program, option B. And Madison Realty Capital will commit to a resident hiring plan in cooperation with NYCHA. So that concludes our presentation. I'm sure there are many questions, which we're happy to answer along with NYCHA.
Oh, I need to unmute myself. Thank you, Martins, and also Jim for doing the presentation. This is the committee member session, and I want to ask. Sorry, I didn't get catch Ben when he was talking about the development rights. Did you say joining the lots and modifying the LSRD will create extra development rights than the Campos Plaza itself can offer without joining the lots? I just want to know if there's like that you are increasing the development rights by joining the laws.
No, I mean, we're not upzoning in any way or creating any new development rights. Those are all already available on the Campos Plaza site. It's just the mechanism to actually transfer them from Campos to the adjoining development site requires us to merge zoning lots, which requires a modification to the large scale approval.
Thank you. Because sometimes when you like modify different like joining lots, you actually there's a way you can increase the development rights. But anyway, thank you for that answering that. Committee members, Olympia, previously you had a hand. I'm sorry, I saw it and then I.
Don't worry. It was resolved. I just wanted to second the participation of Lisa. Since we don't have new members in the committee, it's good to have existing members participate today because that's an important project.
Okay, all right.
But it's not important. So my first question is, so can we have some more concrete information about the affordability of the units?
Sure. So we're proposing to comply, to comply with the Affordable New York program option B of 421A, which requires 30% of the units to be affordable with 10% affordable to households earning up to 70% AMI, and then 20% of the units to be affordable to households earning up to 130% of the AMI.
Yeah, no, this is unacceptable. First of all, 421A is being abolished or, not renewed. But is this the only thing that you are considering, or you have other affordability plans?
We've did a lot of thinking and discussion about this with NYCHA, and this currently is the only option on the table to make the project feasible and also to result in, a more significant amount of revenue going to the Campos Plaza.
Okay, I don't need to understand that. So the second
Olympia,
question
I'm sorry.
is, can you? Sorry, I'm asking my second question.
No, I know, I understand that. I just want to let everybody know that please keep the questions short and to the point, because we want to do one round first for the committee members, and then we'll open up for the public to speak. And after hear what public going to speak, then we can have a second round questions before we work on the rest. So Olympia, go ahead.
Thank you. So the second question was, can you clarify when you say that there's going to be 1,198 square feet of retail, and is it additional 2,145 daycare? And how does that account for the existing daycare services on the site?
happy to answer that,
Yeah,
Nora.
sorry,
or-
Ben, if you want to.
Yeah, so the square footage for the retail, the 1,198 would be what is being proposed within the new building. And same for the 2,000 and change square footage for the community facility. Those numbers do not reflect any of the existing uses that are elsewhere on the, NYCHA, combined NYCHA and development site zoning law.
So to clarify, when you said earlier that the community facility is not yet decided, but basically I saw in one of the presentations, it talked about a daycare. This is most likely what you're discussing, right?
That was an option that was brought up at some of the meetings that we
I
had.
mean, I'm asking this question because I am one of the few parents on the community board of a pre-K, and I know that Campos Plaza is a fundamental service for that community, the existing daycare program and after-school program. So I just want to understand what is the thinking on suggesting that? Is it an expansion of the existing facility? Like, what are you discussing?
I could speak to that a little bit. I think it's a little bit more of a NYCHA question. So we should clarify the different ownership here. So there are community facilities on the Campos Plaza campus that serve youth, right? That serve children. The community facility that they're talking about bringing in here would be on the 644 East 14th Street site. So this would not be on the NYCHA site. This would be on the ground floor of the privately owned site. So there's currently no community facility there because that's the vacant lot, right? That's just an empty lot on the corner of C and 14th Street. So they're committing to that use, a community facility use on the ground floor. What we've been discussing as NYCHA and with the developers and with the resident association is to commit to that use and commit to a continuing conversation about what the most appropriate use is. So we don't want it to come at the expense of other daycare services. We don't want it to be duplicative if it's not needed. We want to have a continued discussion of the best tenant and use for that space. So I think what the best way to think about it is they're committing to a community facility space. The tenant has not been identified. The specific use has not been identified. Daycare was something that came up in an early discussion. But the way we've been talking about it more recently, and which we're working towards committing to, is to say a potential daycare facility or other such services that are community facing, that are low or no cost, as reasonably determined by the authority and the tenant associations and the development partners. So we're kind of keeping the door open, but daycare had come up at some early meetings as a possible option.
Hey, Jim. Olympia, I'm gonna go to Trevor. You will have another chance to ask later before the discussion of the rest. So Trevor, Dominic. Trevor.
Thank you, Jackie. And I'm going to follow your advice because I really want to hear from the resident association and residents before I can actually formulate an opinion on this.
Yep.
But I will say just a couple of technical things. Number one, the schedule in terms of when you plan to start this project. And also, I mean, I know that this is no longer called a minor modification, but I'll ask those questions after we hear from the residents.
Sure. With regard to the schedule, I think we hope to close on this transaction, this summer with NYCHA, and then, hope to commence construction before the end of the year.
That's all I have for now, Jackie.
Thank you. Dominic.
Yeah, so Jackie, I guess the one question I have, I think, is actually for you, which is, did we not have them fill out, I know this is for air rights transfer, however, it's still development. Did we not have them fill out the housing and green development questionnaire?
I had that question as well. But I think they did the application. Susan, when did they submit the application to community board? I think they did that before we finished the. They will refer to us before we finish the questionnaire. I think that is.
I don't think the developer ever submitted anything to us, did they?
I didn't see anything. I mean, they have to
You
go
never
through.
submitted anything to us. We only got a submission from NYCHA. We never got anything that I'm aware of. You know, I can be corrected, but I'm not aware that the developer ever reached out to us for anything.
Yeah, and I apologize. I don't think we were aware that that was required. So happy to, provide that information as soon as we can.
Yeah, I mean, because the housing questionnaire, that already was available even before, depending on the timing. But now, I mean, I'm especially, given especially the location of this in the size, I really would like for that questionnaire to be filled out. I mean, this is in a flood A zone. Did I say that right? Flood zone A.
Zone A. Yes, that's zone A.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot, and there's a lot of questions I think that we're going to be asking that would have been answered in that questionnaire. So my follow-up then is what's the and maybe I missed it. What's the timing for us to have to approve or deny this this evening, or are we able to do it? Yes.
Susan, you wanted, I mean, I know the deadline is June 20th. Susan, you want to talk about it?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Dominic is asking about the timeline for our review, or like when is the deadline we need to submit a resolution or opinion.
You told me the deadline. You told me that it was had to be voted on tonight. Isn't that correct?
Well, the deadline is June 20th, and that is before our, if we do it next month, then it was before our full board. So that's why I'm trying to finish this month.
Jackie, Matt is here from DCP. Jackie, that's Olympia. Matt from DCP is here, so probably he can answer if there is a deadline.
It's a deadline. It's on the website.
It's a 45-day review.
Yeah, but I think it's what Jackie's referencing is that you have your own kind of approval process, and it would have to be voted at full board. And I believe that you would miss that second date in June.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, because I mean, unless are you able to extend that for a couple of days? I mean, June 20th.
I mean, we can see. We would have to chat, and if something comes in late, we always try to get it in front of the commission, but we kind of have to move as soon as like.
It's only a couple of days. Like,
yeah, I mean, we'll have to chat. I think it'd be better if a decision's made, reached tonight and resolution passed, but.
You have to tell us one way or another. They're either going to vote or not vote, and if they don't vote.
Well, I mean, that's your decision. I mean, the deadline is the 20th.
Well, then say.
Remember, if I remember correctly, the deadline is the 20th, right? In our full board meeting for June is 20. Let me see. What's wrong with my? I think it's gonna be 28th of the month.
Can I just ask?
Yeah, Damaris, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't think the question is can they. I think the question is, can the date in general be pushed back? And if it can be pushed back by a few days to give us whatever time we need, then it should be. Otherwise, it may result in a vote that we might not want to take because we don't have all the information we need. So this is not meant to be a punitive action, but I think it is meant so that we can cross, dot all our I's and cross our T's as we move forward. Now, if the date cannot be changed by the city, then that's our response.
So DCP has to give special permission to extend a date. So if we're not getting special permission to extend it, it's not extended. If they say, yes, it is extended, then that's it.
Yeah, that we don't typically, I can't think of an instance when we extended a referral period.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to the committee members, Lisa, and then Steve, Anisha.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but I guess I'll ask one now. Is that what's preferred?
No, because we want to hear what the tenants and also
well,
other
very much so. But one of my questions would put that in context. But anyway, I just want to clarify what I think when I did my back of the envelope computations is that the effective FAR on this site would be 14 and change. Is that correct? If you take the total development, the total square footage of the building over the lot size, you get 14.2, which is over and above what is typically allowed for a residential building. Did I do that correctly?
Well, I actually haven't done that calculation. We could double check that, but I trust your math. But I think the calculation is based on the zoning lot, not on the development site.
Right.
So it does comply.
Understood, it complies. It's just a way of understanding the bulk of that building and the effect it's going to have on the neighborhood and maybe in particular the co-op building just to the west. Really briefly, let me see, maybe this, Jim, if you could just quickly say, I wasn't entirely sure if you were saying that all of the rights that were, all of the payment for the rights that will come from Madison Realty go to Campos, or do they go to NYCHA and with some of it going to Campos?
Yeah, so that's a really important distinction. Historically, on deals like this in the past, that money has sometimes gone into a general fund. It has sometimes gone partially to a dedicated campus. In this instance, we are committing, and we are in the process of negotiating, a legally actionable document that would capture this. That would say that these benefits would be for the exclusive use at Campos Plaza 2, and would be dispersed in consultation and really in collaboration with the tenant association. So committing both to only using it there and to moving it through a planning process that would involve the residents.
Thank you.
Jim, I have a follow-up questions on Lisa's question. So since Campos, last fall when you were at the NYCHA committee meeting, so you mentioned that Campos 2 is going to go through the red conversion or PAC conversion, and if I remember this correctly, they're gonna get some money from HUD for the repair or upgrade. So if that's the case, then selling this air right, and you are bringing, by selling this air right, the proceeds is returning to Campos Plaza. So what's that money for? Because if you are already is the red money not enough to upgrade and repair the building? So you need extra money or what?
So there's a few pieces to that question. One is that the way I described it earlier is that there's a few opportunities here to bring in dedicated revenue for Campos Plaza 2. The air rights deal is one, and the pending pact conversion is another one. There is a pact conversion on the table. There is no definitive decision on whether that's moving forward or not. We are waiting for the tenant association to give us clear indication that they are prepared to move forward. We are honoring whatever process they want to go through to come to a comfortable decision on that. And they're currently working through a process that they designed to take a community vote on that process, and we are in a holding pattern until they're ready to go and they're comfortable with the results of that process. So at this point in time, that's kind of on the table, but this project's ready to move forward. In terms of what is the need here and how do these two different funding streams interact and what's paying for what? One does not really come at the expense of the other. So it's not as though we would start, for example, paying down repair costs with the money from this. This would be all pulled together as one big source of funding. Currently, there's a little bit more. As of 2017, there was about $32 million of capital repair needs at this development. The number's definitely gone up. It's probably closer to $35 or $40 million. The way we think about the scope of a PAC project, for example, is that it must, at minimum, and this is a HUD requirement, address the capital repair backlog that exists, that is documented at a development. We always try to expand the scope above and beyond that. There are things that would make a NYCHA building modern, improved amenities, better landscaping, all these things that are beyond that minimum scope. So from our perspective, we think there's a lot of value in bringing in more money than the minimum that is required to meet the capital repair backlog. So that's why we want to look at both of these revenue streams, because just bringing the building up to the basic modernized standard and meeting those long due capital repairs is kind of the minimum. It's an important improvement. It's a really significant improvement, but we always want to develop scopes that go beyond that. So we're looking for extra money if we can get it for dedicated use here.
Thank you, Jim. And Steve, can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. I understand that for Section 8 or Section 9 projects, usually they have they have a limit on the capital reserve you can carry. So if you are doing you are bringing in this money into from the sales of air right to this project, would you meet that cap that you are unable to bring in extra money from the HUD? Because you have that capital reserve limitation. They actually put a cap on how much you can have on your capital reserve.
So I don't know that would come into play in this situation because it's a private transaction, right? The money's not coming through HUD. It's not coming in through Section 9. We're basically saying, we're getting the funding in from MRC, and we're going to spend it down through a planning process that the residents drive. So it's not flowing through HUD in the traditional way Section 9 funding does. I hope that's clear. It's not going to be necessarily constrained by some of those regulations and okay, those kind of procurement requirements necessarily. I mean, ideally, if we did both programs, we would have this pool of money and do a big planning process with all of it at the same time. If not, we're still committing to doing that work with the residents. Either way, one project can move forward without the other, but these both give us a little bit more flexibility than the traditional NYCHA capital planning division, which is, as you are describing, subject to pretty strict requirements on how capital and operating funds are spent down.
Thank you, Jim. Steve and Damaris, I saw you had a hand.
Okay, thanks.
Jim answered my question, so I took my hand down.
Okay. All right, so the presentation mentioned that there were height and setback waivers pursuant to a large-scale development plan dating back to 1972. And I'm wondering, since the urban renewal plan expired at some point, these waivers themselves didn't expire? I mean, they just exist in perpetuity, so that there's no limit on heights or the setbacks?
Sure. So yes, the urban renewal plan did expire. The large scale approval, which is a special permit issued by city planning, does not expire. And that doesn't allow a blanket waiver to allow any height. It allows a waiver, but it really locks you into an exact development on the site. So, you have your as of right zoning, and then the large scale in some ways will allow some waivers, like maybe you can put two buildings closer together, but those buildings have to then be in that exact same location. So it does give you that future, it really preserves that approved development for the future.
Okay, and I just have another couple of quick questions. Now, the 421A tax abatement, that's in effect for 30 years, is that right?
Well, the benefit period?
Yeah, the benefit period.
I think it's between 30 and I think it's 35 years now. That's actually not my area of expertise. So
okay. And when that 35-year period ends, what happens with the low-income housing? Does it revert to market rate upon vacancy?
I think it depends what the rents are at the time that the benefit period expires. But again, I have to get back to you.
Okay, because we've seen other 421A deals where tenants basically were forced out of their apartments after the abatement is no longer in effect. Mm-hmm. So is this not permanently affordable housing or what?
Right, it's not permanently. It's not in an inclusionary housing designated area.
Right. Okay. And my understanding, 130% of AMI, that amounts to incomes for a family of two of what, $130,000 or what?
Family of two, Based on the latest 2022 data that was released by HPD, it's 138,000 for a
Yeah.
family of 2.
Okay. And do you have an idea of what % of the households in this community district have that kind of income?
I don't have that information.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'm assuming it's a relatively low percentage. All right. Fine. I just want to express my own dismay about doing business with Madison Realty Capital. Cooper Square Committee has been working with a number of buildings that they financed as they provided private equity to Rafael Toledano, who bought a number of buildings, displaced a lot of tenants. They have about 140 units in about 15 buildings, of which half of them are vacant right now. So, I mean, I'll let the tenants talk about what they've been through, but to me, this is just not something that I'm very enthusiastic to hear about. That's it.
If we can discuss that later at before the rest of discussion, or what do we want to do with this? Damaris, I think Anisha had a hand before you, if I remember correctly. Anisha.
That's okay. I want to hear what the residents.
Oh, okay. All right. Damaris.
I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna wait.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna wait so that I gather all my questions, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Damaris. If you can lower your hand. Okay. So I'm gonna open up for the public session. Whoever wants to speak, you can raise your hand, and then I'll call you, and then you can speak. But please limit your time to 2 minutes only, because I'm just assuming many people want to speak or not. But yes, go ahead, Victoria.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm Victoria Murphy, and I'm representing the co-op board for 14 BC, which is right at the foot, a few buildings removed from the proposed site.
For you go on. Victoria, did you put your name in the chat, like in the chat box? Did you sign in?
No. Do you want me to do that?
Please do, because so we can have a record, like who are here tonight and who speak.
Okay, did that do it?
Thank you, Victoria. I can see that, but I guess Anisha, you have that, right?
Susan is still the host. Susan, do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you.
It has a name. It does. Oh, yeah. It doesn't tell who you're representing. Okay, I'll put that in. Is that good?
Susan, you have that, right? Because I can't see it. I just assume it's okay. Victoria, go ahead, please.
Okay, sure, thanks. The setback location of the proposed building, its solid mass and soaring height of 24 stories is 5 times the height of our buildings. The 14 BC co-op request that the height of the proposed building is reduced substantially and the footprint shifted northward. And we request participation in this negotiation process. We support affordable housing, and we're glad the proposed building has some. We're not NIMBYs. In the 1980s, we were approached for feedback regarding a zoning variance that NYCHA wanted in order to build, I guess, Campos 2, directly behind our building. That proposed building would reduce our sunlight, increase noise and foot traffic. We decided not to object because we support affordable housing. The building was built, and ever since we've experienced less light and more noise and foot traffic. As 644 East 14th is currently designed, there would be no point in installing solar panels on our roof that we've been planning. The air shafts in our 6 tenement buildings are an important source of light and air. Both light and air would be drastically diminished. We would lose the sunlight in our backyard due to the footprint being shifted southward, which is why we oppose that. And the building would reduce airflow from the East River and would have more noise and foot traffic.
These changes will negatively affect our quality of life and decrease our property values further. We welcomed affordable housing years ago without recompense for its hit on our quality of life. Now NYCHA is receiving $25 million in exchange for a building variance that will further reduce our quality of life. That's why we ask for substantial height reduction, northward shift of the footprint, and to participate in negotiations. Obviously, we're a little late to this game, not because we knew and ignored, but we didn't know.
Thank you, Victoria. Any other people from the public who wants to speak? Carol Kostick, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. Carol?
You're on mute, Carol.
I know, sorry about that. I'm just typing in the chat so that you have a record of me.
Thank you, Carol.
Sure. Okay, hopefully that went in. Yes, hello, and hello to those who I know from way back when I was on the community board. I'm a resident of 14 BC Co-op, and I want to reinforce what Victoria said and talk a little bit more about the positioning of this very large building on its lot, which I understand is being merged legally. They have placed this building, they've shifted it away from 14th Street by 10 feet and also shifted it in from Avenue C, presumably to allow additional bulk to go up as opposed to being spread out. 14th Street, our sidewalk is already exceptionally wide. It's 18 feet wide. And there's absolutely no need to make it 28 feet wide in front of this building in order to presumably, again, add more bulk at a higher level. And the building is now going up as a sheer wall facing us and all the way to the back end of the existing Strauss Auto Parts lot. So it's essentially turning our backyard into an air shaft. We already have the very large Campos 2 in back of us. It's, I believe, 9 or 10 stories. We have the high-rise Campos 2 to our west, which is 20-odd stories. And now we'll have this proposed 24-story building to our east, again, turning us into an air shaft. We're not part of any of the conversations or process. The developer reached out to us a couple of weeks ago and told us about this, so we've been looking at it. But there seems to be no consideration for the people who actually live here now. I would also point out there was sort of a very carefully answer to the zoning question earlier, and the question about the urban renewal plan. Of course, this lot wasn't part of the urban renewal plan when it was written, so I'm not sure how it can be grandfathered into a plan that it wasn't part of in way back. But I would also point out that we've had 2 large new affordable housing buildings on 14th Street by major developers, one at the corner of Avenue A and one between Avenue A and First Avenue. And both of those are 7 or 8 stories tall. They're affordable. They have the affordable housing. They were built, they accommodated the underground water flooding, et cetera. So it's not clear why this building needs to be so big to generate affordable housing and money for NYCHA. But in any event, if it's going to be built, it needs to be built in a way that has the least impact possible on those of us who are its neighbors now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Trevor, you have a hand.
Yeah, I'm not trying to speak or ask a question. I'm just hoping that because NYCHA had mentioned that they had a lot of discussions with the NYCHA tenant leadership. So I'm hoping that there's someone here from Campos who can fit that role, because I really would like to hear about those negotiations or those discussions with the NYCHA tenant leadership.
Yep. I mean, tenant leadership or just the residents of those 2 buildings are welcome to speak. We want to hear from you. Okay. Seeing none. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to discuss what we're gonna do with the committee members.
Wait, Jackie,
Yes.
it's not that they're not here. I just think that they're choosing, I mean, they're here.
I think I mean I want to encourage the Campos and Plaza, both TA or regular residents to speak, because we really want to know what you guys think, and we want to hear your opinion.
Hi, yes, my name is Inez Turpin. I am the TA treasurer from Campus Plaza. I would like my president, Christine, to speak. I don't know why she can't unmute. She doesn't want to speak. I don't know why. I would like her to speak on behalf of our TA board, because she has been sitting more into the meetings with our developers than I have. I'm not in tune with more of the meetings than she is. My question, like most of the tenants here, are basically the same thing like everybody else in our area. We want to know exactly how this building is going to impact the community financially as well as socially. The developers are going to come in and they're basically going to do exactly what they said they're going to do until the building goes up. So that concerns all of us. Some of our tenants, as you know, the fear of the unknown and the surprise of new things have a tendency to scare people. People don't know if they're going to be displaced. People don't know if their rents are going to go up. And so the fear of the unknown is something that I think is the biggest concern more than anything else. Low income at the rate that we were just talking about is unfathomable for a lot of people. I think that people now are struggling to pay their rent even when it's not considered low income, or if it's considered low income. And if over a certain amount of years, is that rate going to go up where they're going to be? Also a concern for a lot of our older tenants and our senior citizens, including myself, is if this doesn't fly, are we going to be displaced? And I think, I don't know if our developers can answer that right now. I don't know if they're able to answer that right now.
For that, Ms. Turpin, I'm just curious, do you live in Campos number 1?
I live in Campos 2.
Campos 2, okay. And you are a tenant there, you are not.
It's 1982.
Okay, and you are not the TA, right? You are.
I'm a TA treasurer.
You are TA treasurer, okay. But it looks like you are not very familiar with the project.
I'm very familiar with the project, but that's why I don't know why my president's not speaking, because I don't go to all the meetings.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think that's an appropriate statement to make. She's expressing herself the way she's going to express herself. And I don't think that we as board members can make those kind of claims and assertions.
No, I'm just asking her. I'm not, that is not a statement.
I'm saying I don't want to make any assumptions.
Not you, Inez.
No. I'm saying my TA president
to say that you don't, that you're not familiar with the project.
I am familiar with the project.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, I'm very familiar. I'm sorry, Damaris, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I was simply saying that it was not our job to interpret what you were saying or to say that you weren't familiar with the project.
No, because
that wasn't appropriate on our behalf to do. That's all.
I see.
No, I basically was, because she was saying that she wasn't sure like what is the financial impact, the social impact of this project. That's why that's why I thought that she may not know the project very well. That's what I meant.
I'm very well with the financial and the social aspects of what it can be. But I'm just saying that on behalf of my president, I just think that she might have a little bit more knowledge than I have, because she might be a little bit more in tune than I am, because she has a little bit more directive with the developers than I do, because I don't go to all of the meetings. That's what I'm saying. I mean, she might not feel good and she might not want to speak for whatever reasons, but I'm speaking on behalf of Campus Plaza too, because there's only 2 people that's on this meeting right now. So I didn't want us not to say anything on behalf of the board members, and nobody's speaking but me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's 3 of us on this meeting. There's 5 of us that's on the board. So I just didn't want to think that out of the 3 of us were sitting here, no one seems to, I don't want anyone from Community Board 3 to think that we're ignorant to the fact that we don't know what we're talking about, or we haven't been informed about this project. You asked Tavares, yes, we've been very well informed about it. But all of us cannot ask all of the questions, I'm sure, that have been put before us. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. So I'm gonna go down the list on the participant list. So we're gonna have we protest MLC. Damaris, you have more comment or questions? And then this lady from Take Root Justice.
I'm leaving.
Just leave. I'll be on here. I can wait for more folks.
Okay.
To talk, okay.
All right.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. Pretty much everyone who has the hold MRC accountable signs
Can you
up.
say your name or can you say your name or put your name in the chat?
I'll tell you honestly, the reason why we're all anonymous is because we are current tenants of Madison Realty Capital and we're afraid of retribution.
Okay.
So if
All
you
right.
rather me, I can withdraw my comment, but that's why we haven't stated our names.
No, I think you can talk.
Okay, I'll just keep it brief.
Yep.
So we are current tenants of Madison Realty. We're also all members of a group called Tenants Take Control, or TTC, which was formed during the reign of Mr. Toledano, as Mr. Tarek aptly described earlier. TTC, or Tenants Take Control, would be happy to share more information, whether that be email or mail, our long history and experience with Madison Realty Capital as landlords. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jackie, I'm
Yes.
told that Doris Huff has her hands up. I don't see it, but I'm told it's up.
Can you
I'm
say?
told she wants to speak.
Yeah, I can see her hand. I have a mouse, though I have a MLC residence, but I think we should let Doris to speak. But I can't. Oh, I see her. Doris, you need to unmute yourself. I think you're muting yourself. Okay, so I don't
Maybe
know
go
what to
back
do.
to her.
She's not unmuting herself.
You can come back to her maybe.
Okay, yep. We protest MLC. You already spoke. I think I'm gonna go to MLC resident.
Yes, hello. I am a Madison Realty Capital resident. I'm in a building that had a regular landlord, and Rafael Toledano bought that building along with 14 other buildings in the East Village. And he was funded by Madison Realty Capital. He quickly went bankrupt, and Madison Realty Capital has been my landlord for quite a while now. I believe the Attorney General got involved in the affair between Madison Realty Capital and Rafael Toledano and their behavior towards tenants. And I know that there was I'm not sure if it was a fine issued against Madison Realty Capital, but they had to pay $1 million to the tenants for mistreatment. And I would only ask that this committee consider who they're doing business with. If this is the type of business that they're already conducting with real residents in the East Village, then why are we considering them as a developer for a large project elsewhere in the East Village? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I see two We Protest MLC, are they from the same person or different people? Okay, I'm gonna go to MLC removes affordable units by FAR. I can't read everything. This is
Thank
blocked
you.
on my screen.
That's me. Hope you can hear me. My name is Roy Zorno. I live at 27 St. Mark's, apartment 5B. I am a TTC coalition member. I have been under the thumb of Madison Realty Capital, experiencing months of harassment by construction. They are removing affordable housing units through Frankensteining. Nothing against the fine people who presented this plan. You seem completely reasonable, but if you knew the human misery that Madison has caused people who have had to stay in their homes due to COVID, the demolition, the construction, the dust, the shaking, the banging, the noise, the lost sleep, the health problems, they were just fairly ruthless with us. And we want to have a good relationship with them, but we have really experienced a lot of suffering from Madison Realty Capital. Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Jackie, I'm having a hard time hearing because someone's not muted.
I think it's
Jack-
Therese.
It's Therese. See, can you have Therese
Hello?
speak?
Therese,
Hello?
we can hear you. You can speak, Therese.
Hi, my name is Therese Huff. I got a little cold, I'm sorry. I am the TA president on the Section 8 private side. All I really want to say is that all I know is on the other 3 buildings, the elevators are going down. People are trying to get to their appointments for dialysis and all of that, and nothing is being done. So that's where I stand. I stand where NYCHA has not done too much repairs at all on the Campos Plaza 2 side, and they keep putting Band-Aids on everything. And it's not fair to the hundreds of residents that live on that side. It's just not fair. The apartments are, water is getting inside the apartments, elevators are not working. Since Hurricane Sandy, nothing has been done to these elevators. So that's where I stand on this meeting at tonight. And that's it. I'm gonna say, thank you.
Therese, can you talk a little bit about the proposal, like what they are doing?
They're supposed to be revamping the elevators, the boilers. Right now, they barely get hot water over there. Some days they got hot water, some days they don't have hot water. Everybody's entitled to hot water.
Yes, thank you.
I mean, it's sad. It's really sad. I don't know. Like I said, I hear a lot of things that people are saying about the company. I don't know. I don't know either way, but all I know is I think about the residents on that side. How much longer do they have to continue enduring what they're enduring on that side? Leaks in their apartments. They put the things on the roofs from Hurricane Sandy. And that got leaks in people's apartments. I mean, it's just sad, really sad. And that's all I'm gonna say there. And what are they? We supposed to keep letting everything go to the ground, let the building fall down with everybody in it? We got to do something.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hello, hi Dee. This is Christine Book, and I've been trying to unmute myself and trying to raise my hand to speak. I'm the president from Campos 2. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, please, Christine.
We can hear you, Christine.
Hi, everybody. I was listening to all of the negative stuff about the Realty. I knew a little bit on their history, thanks to Goals sharing some information. As I said, my name is Christine Bookin. I am currently the president over at Campos Plaza 2. You know, this whole idea was proposed about, I would say, maybe 8 months ago. With, of course, I had, you know, reservations. The thought of a large building coming into play on Avenue C across from Con Edison, to me wasn't a good idea. I reached out to Goals and my representatives in the area to come sit down with me and the board and to talk with us to see how we should proceed with this. After that, after a couple of those meetings, we took it upon ourselves to hire somebody who is a lawyer to help us and guide us also. When Madison Realty proposed the project of what they would like to do, unfortunately, I was the most negative one there because I felt the building was too big, too wide, very tall, because, you know, the base of the building is where supposedly the stores are going to be, which means the stories will be on top of that base, which would make it more higher. For my other board members that are here, they know how I felt since day one. And the only reason why we finally decided to go with it, with NYCHA, was because we took a vote. And the vote oversaw, you know, the majority won, I'll put it like that. We were just thinking about the revenue that would be coming in to help Campos. Yes, we're still concerned about the height. Yes, we're still concerned about all of that. But they did make it smaller, and they did, you know, they tried to go back to the drawing board and try to do it. And they also took some monies that would be coming to Campos 2 off the table. We questioned the fact now going back for apartments for low income. They said if they were to do that, they would not be able to make any monies, and therefore Campos 2 would not have any monies, okay, if they make it affordable throughout. That wasn't a big issue for us, but it's pretty obvious they're there to make money. So like I said, eventually after all these months and meetings with tenants and with the board and with, of course, with our lawyers, the vote was taken and the majority overruled. I'm sorry about all the other issues that are coming up that not all of us knew about. But my concern are the tenants. We've been living without nothing for years. My concern was to get the buildings fixed. If anybody wants to ask me anything, please feel free.
Thank you, Christine. So next we're gonna have We Protest MLC, Trevor, and Dominic, and then go back to Damaris.
Okay, and Jackie, I just want to point out, Georgina's iPhone 6 keeps raising their hand physically in the box.
Let me see.
Yes. Unfortunately, I'm on an iPhone and I can't get into chat. I'm really kind of dismayed that a lot of what's to be done has not really come to completion. 421A is supposed to sunset. And we were under the impression that this was going to be permanent, affordable housing. And the monies that they are expecting for people to pay for rent, and the salaries are not in keeping with what the Lower East Side represents. You know, and there's been so much new housing built, and even in my building, MRC Frankenstein, and we lost 10 affordable units. Now with the Frankensteining, they want to rent it for $10,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And they've had to lower the price because there haven't been any takers. And I can tell you this building, there is no lipstick on this pig. Now, I'm really interested in keeping affordable housing and it being true. And I think we really need to see that it is signed on the dotted line. And I would like to know more about the greening of the building. And I'm really disheartened by how this building is going to affect the residents around the area who have already spoken. I think that takes precedent over what Madison Realty Capital wants to do. And because we have been long-term Lower East Side tenants, and we should be listened to. And I'm really concerned about the pollution in that area and the residents. I mean, I love it. It's going to be built so that it's like at an angle with the smokestacks. Hallelujah. Let's have more particulate matter enter into our residents. And just to refresh your memory, years ago, the Lower East Side sued Con Edison because of particulate matter. And we are one of the few people or few organizations on the Lower East Side ever that won a lawsuit on particulate matter. Now, I know that it has reduced, but it's still not healthy. So if people are going to be living in this building, I want to see that they're going to do something that's going to keep that particulate matter out of the bodies of the people who are going to live there. And then there's the other thing that doesn't get discussed because the EPA has not done any current studies, although Europe and other countries have. And that is on the electrical, what do you call it? Electrical field that that's created by electromagnetic field that's created by Con Edison. I've listened to videos of what the electromagnetic field sounds like around Con Edison, and it doesn't sound healthy. But the EPA, they haven't done any current research. But electromagnetic field is nothing to joke about. It really is a body destroyer, and to be built that close to Con Edison and to have people living in that building, without it being green and it wouldn't matter anyway. The electromagnetic field just penetrates through the stone and what have you. So I'm really dismayed that you haven't held Madison Realty Capital to signing how they're going to build it, what is affordability, and in keeping with the history of the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
And
thank you so much. Let me see. We're gonna have we protest MLC. This one is this lady who showed the face, and also Trevor, Dominic. And then we should start talking about like what we want to do. You can go ahead, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a current MRC tenant.
Did you speak before?
And I'd like to. No, I haven't
okay.
spoken.
Okay, so let me see. There's two We Protest MRC. The other person, I think you spoke earlier. So can you lower your hand, please? Yes, go ahead, please.
First of all, we wrote a letter to the community board, and I'm wondering if you all received it, because in that letter, we detailed our experiences as tenants of Madison Realty Capital. So have you received that letter?
Yes, yes, I have.
Okay.
The committee
thank
members haven't, the chair has.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You can talk about it, your concerns, yes.
Yeah, I went to visit this lot the other day, and it's very, very small. And there's a lot of standing water. So, you know, it's a concern to me about how you're gonna, it is in flood zone A, as has been previously mentioned. How are they gonna address that? I do want to express, it's good to hear from tenants in surrounding buildings and tenants in Campos too, because when our buildings were under Toledano, we experienced some of the same things, no hot water. We were overrun by vermin. A lot of sometimes there was no heat. A lot of the same problems. We do not have an elevator in any of our buildings. So these are 5- and 6-story walk-ups. So I'm really understand your concerns about these issues in your buildings. But then the other part of it is what happens with these surrounding buildings. It is going to cut off light and air. So I think these are real serious issues and considerations. And that if this project is going to go forward, you really need to pin down the whole issue of affordable housing and construction that is sturdy and reasonable. I know that Madison Realty Capital is very resourceful. And I'm wondering if there can be a project found that will both benefit NYCHA and the community without building a 24-story tower on a very tiny plot of land. So those are my questions, my issues. Thank you.
I don't see any more hands from non-members, so I'm going to close the public session. So no more comments or questions from the public. And Trevor Dominic Demaris.
Sure, thank you. I'm going to get to some of the questions that are more technical, and this may or may not have been answered, so pardon me.
This is considered the second round. If committee members want to have more questions or comments, this is the time you can ask and talk about it. Trevor, I'm sorry.
So I'll stack the questions to try and make it a little easier. What was the revenue figure that's expected to go to Campos Plaza 2? And clarification on the affordable program that you're using. I know in previous years when the 421A type of program has sunsetted, developers have switched to the new one, or if there is one that's going to be voted on, and if that's a consideration, because I think there's some issue with losing affordable units permanently. I'm going to assume that that's the only program available right now that allows you to build affordable homes. And would you build this without the transfer of rights? I know you showed a picture of a building that was completely different from the two proposed developments, or the two sort of buildings that you looked at. With that, could you build this without the amount of units and still make this happen, because I'm trying to see if what you're proposing or what you proposed that would not have development rights could even be built at all. And the last question is, and this might be for NYCHA, I know I've sat in on some other proposed developments where the residents in the TA or the RA had an opportunity to be part of the choosing a developer. And I want to know if that happened on this particular process, meaning were they involved in the picking of the developer?
Nora, do you want to let me answer some of the NYCHA questions first and then come back to the 421A questions?
Sure.
So let me start with the proceeds question. So keeping in mind that this is approximate because there's no deal closed at the moment, we're talking about approximately $19.5 million of proceeds going directly to Campos Plaza 2. This is in the face of north of $30 million of capital repair needs as of 2017, knowing that number has likely gone up in the meantime. The question of the developer selection. So I just want to clarify, I think we're probably not being as clear as we can be on this. In a situation like this, where there's an air rights transfer, they bought that private owner bought that land, and that developer was going to work on that project with or without NYCHA involved. So the residents were not involved in their choosing. That was their project. They bought the land. They were ready to develop it. They approached us. Now, and I know this isn't what's on the table tonight, but the PACT project, which was the other piece of the puzzle that the board members and the community at large at Campos 2 are also considering for a vote, in that process, they would be at the table and have a say in the selection of the new management and development partner. They would be doing that would be the partner that's doing the repairs of the Campos Plaza 2 building. So no, they did not select the developer for 644 East 14th Street, but yes, they would, if they chose to move forward with PACT, select that developer.
Jim, I'm sorry, I'm doing some simple calculation. How much is the per square footage cost? You said the transfer is 108,000.
Yeah,
is that right?
I believe it's 100 and I mean, this is all.
So the per square footage is only $180
per square foot, right? And it's about 108,000 square feet, as far as I understand. So right, it ends up being north of $19.5 million.
$19.5 million. So the per square, the air right is only $180. That's actually pretty low, as far as I know. Trevor, you have more question?
Yeah, the two questions which I already posed, and that was, would they build this without these rights? Because I'm looking at the numbers, including what Jackie said, and I'm seeing that the numbers don't exactly match, but I didn't do all the calculations. Would you build this without the rights? And a clarification on, is this the only affordable program out right now? And would you switch to a permanent affordability if it was indeed offered during the construction period?
So I'm not quite sure which numbers don't match. I'm not.
Well, I guess you can just answer the question of whether you would build this without the transfer of air rights.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there were DOB approved plans to build a project at this site. And I think, NYCHA had made public their transfer to preserve program, which involves raising much needed revenue for NYCHA developments by transferring development rights to private development sites, and thought this is a way, could potentially increase the development potential of the site and also obviously generate revenue for NYCHA. So there is an as of right development plan at the site.
Okay, so NYCHA reached out to you for those development rights?
No, they didn't reach out to us directly, but that is
Okay.
a program that NYCHA put together under the last administration, and is something that other developers have been taking advantage of to sort of mutually benefit them and also NYCHA. And I think an important point about the affordability, while this is not an affordable housing project, but it does accomplish a really important goal of preserving helping to preserve existing, some of the city's most affordable housing, which is located on the NYCHA campus. And then some of it that most drastically needs funding. And if this were 100% affordable development, that revenue would not be generated for NYCHA. So there is no other affordable housing program other than the current 421A program that is sunsetting June 15th. Is that me? This project is hoping to, be grandfathered under that program. There's no new program that we know of yet. We'd have to see what any successor program or any new programs are implemented to determine if that would be something we would pursue. I will say that we are, these AMIs are up to, if these rents, these units can go to households making lower AMI levels. And in fact, have to if they can't be leased up at the higher AMI levels.
Okay, I didn't realize that distinction. So you are trying to qualify for the existing 420A by getting a pile cap in before June 15th then?
Yes, the foundation actually has already been commenced at the site. That's why there's the water problem. Unfortunately, when Madison purchased the site, that had already been commenced.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. I'll cease so we can allow other members.
Dominic, do you mind if I let Herman go first because he hasn't spoke at all tonight? Herman. 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 Never mind, Dominic, you go. Sorry about that. And thank you.
Okay. So actually I have two questions. One is a follow-up to the person that spoke about the Section 8. I just want to clarify as who's managing the Section 8 today?
So I can try to answer that. So some of the history here is that Campos Plaza was one large NYCHA development at one point in time. Campos Plaza 1, which was what was referred to earlier as a Section 8 building, went through a program called the Triboro Preservation Trust, which was an earlier model that has some similarities to what PACT looks like. That was an attempt for NYCHA to find a more robust subsidy for our developments through project-based Section 8 vouchers, but it required bringing on board a private manager, and it actually required a sale of property, which is not something that happens through PACT. So that was a pilot. It's not a program we're doing anymore, but they do have Section 8, and they are privately managed by it's L&M, and I think CNC is the property manager, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And then, so I think I wasn't clear though, how are they, it sounds like Campos is getting $19.5 million, Campos 2. What is the Section 8 building going to be getting?
So they don't get any, they're not a NYCHA property. So the proceeds would be exclusively for Campos Plaza 2. Campos 1, NYCHA has a small ownership stake in that property as part of this Triboro partnership, but that's getting robustly funded through the Section 8 program. The deeply underfunded Section 9 program is what's currently financing Campos 2. That's why they're in such a desperate need of additional funds. So that's our property. That's NYCHA's properties is Campos 2. And that's where all these proceeds would be going in an attempt, to fill those really desperate capital repair backlogs that we can't catch up with through the Section 9 funding.
Okay, so this project would not benefit them for Campos 1 for the elevator issues that the speaker was talking about.
I think what got mixed up possibly is that the speaker I was speaking about, the president from Campos 1 was speaking about elevator issues at Campos Plaza 2. So I think maybe that was where the wires got a little crossed, but yeah, there are serious elevator issues and other major capital repair needs at Campos 2. I would let the residents of Campos 1 speak to their experiences there. I don't represent that property at all.
Okay. Okay. So the So the other question I have is on the development side is, are there green building certifications that are being utilized in that development as planned? And what are they, or is it?
If sorry, if Ben from our team can speak to that.
Sure. So the proposed property will be sorry, my camera's not on. The proposed development will be subject to all local laws. And the sustainability goals have yet to be over and above the local laws have yet to be set by the developer.
Yeah, that's what I would want to know, is over and above. Because I certainly hope you're following the local laws.
Yeah.
You have more question?
Dominic,
Nope.
I didn't hear your last statement. Can you
I
repeat
can
that?
hear. Yep.
My last statement was, I certainly hope they're following the local laws. What I want to know is, what certifications and what standards are being followed that are, above the local laws for green building development.
I got that. It was the last one. The last little sentence. Thank you. Sorry.
I'm good, Jack.
Okay, thank you. Damaris, Olympia, Lisa, Herman.
All right. This is like, a very challenging situation for me. So first I want to give a little bit of context. Christine talked about meeting with goals. To talk about these things, our role was to talk largely about the RAD PAC program, do some education, and we did, as much as we could at the time, given our constraints, a little bit of work around understanding, the transfer of the air rights and what that was going to look like. But the residents are fully capable and they have moved forward on their own from that point to make their decisions. And so here's the thing, on the one hand, those buildings are in serious disrepair. They haven't had any real or major renovations almost since they were constructed. And this is one of the reasons why, they feel like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place and having to, choose to do this so that they can get the necessary repairs. At the same time, there are other buildings and other residents adjacent to the property that will be, severely impacted. And if people think that air and light is not an issue, it is a health issue. When you don't have enough sunlight, you can suffer from much, a vitamin D deprivation. Trust me, I know. I was locked up in my apartment for 2 years because of COVID. And I now take like 50,000 milligrams of vitamin D just to get my head straight. Okay. It's real. These issues, these health concerns are real. So, there's, if it benefits one side and then it doesn't benefit the other side. And so for us, I think, there are a few things that maybe can help us think through this. One is, what can $19.5 million really fix? Can it replace elevators, Jim? How many elevators could it replace, right? What real options are the residents going to have in directing NYCHA on how to use these resources if the RAD PAC program doesn't move forward, which, I am no fan of, and I make no, apologies for that, because while RAD has brought in revenue, it has also brought in a lot of other problems. And, that's neither here nor there, but we can bring people who can give us scores of testimony to talk about how dissatisfied they are. Nonetheless, the issues at Campos remain. And then the issues at the adjacent buildings also remain. Some other questions I have. Was there any kind of, what was the soil testing that was done? And did we not find any contamination in that soil? And if so, what kind of remediation was done? Because there's other lots in that general vicinity that I happen to know because they're in such close proximity to the Con Edison plant we're deep in the soil, and when you're constructing and pile driving and doing things like that, it is lifting up contaminants. And so like even the EPA has put out notices and asking folks to do stuff. So that's a real issue. You know, the smokestacks, I mean, that affects everybody, right? But like if we're dredging up, you know, ground that's gonna have contamination and gonna do further damage, that's a real problem. So I think, you know, I agree with everyone else that the affordability is questionable. You know, it would be great if they could at least be permanent. Maybe we can wrap our heads around something like that and the sacrifice could be worth it. But it doesn't feel to me in some ways like, you know, doing this, it's not generating a lot of money, it's generating some money. We don't know what it can fix. And then all of this sacrifice so that in 30 years, those units could potentially become market rate or luxury units. I mean, that sounds a little, you know, crazy to me. So that's, you know, those are some questions, some remarks that I wanted to share. And I was just trying to wait because before I, you know, began to ask anything or say anything, I wanted to hear what other people were saying. So I would like to really know about the contamination and about what can be built or what can be, you know, repaired with these resources.
Nora, I don't know if you have a question about the remediation or the environmental studies. I can put, in the meantime, I could try to pull up some information about the types of capital
My
projects.
question was, did we find any contaminant? Was there any testing done? And if so, what was the remediation plan that was put forward to make that soil, you know, ready for development and construction?
Sure. So we actually have Michael Keene from Cameron Engineering, who is our environmental consultant on this project. So he can elaborate, but this project has been accepted into the brownfield cleanup program, this site, which, you know, will subject us to an agreement with the state that will require remediation of the site. And actually going through this process required a heightened environmental review than if we had pursued as of right development on the site, including noise analysis, hazmat. So even if for some reason we drop out of the brownfield cleanup program, we are going to have some other environmental restrictive declaration recorded against the property that requires us to remediate to that standard.
Thank you. Before Olympia, I just want to.
Jackie,
Yes.
I didn't get a response.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From NYCHA regarding what kinds, you know, how far can this revenue go?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it would not cover so we have to do a physical needs assessment every 5 years. The last one was done in 2017. Campos Plaza 2 was identified as having a little bit higher than $32 million in capital repair needs. And that's just to bring everything up to, you know, a functioning state of repair. That's not any, you know, advanced modernization. You know, that's just like everything's in working order, right? And considered acceptable, passing inspection by HUD, all of these things. So $19.5 million is a big chunk of that, but it doesn't complete the work. There are certain kind of subcategories within that where we know there were systems that could be replaced within that scope of work. And keep in mind, these numbers have all gone up since then. But in 2017, there was $12.5 million of repairs needed inside apartment interiors. So that's like the kitchens, the bathrooms, the floor, the ceiling. You know, we could start working in apartment interiors if, as we heard earlier, maybe the resident priority is more building systems. There was more than $6 million of building systems repair needs, and I think that's gone up quite a bit, actually, as we've heard about, you know, roofs leaking and plumbing getting worse. You know, that bucket of repairs, that was the north of $6 million bucket, that covers elevators, electric, heating, hot water. There were also a lot of issues in 2017's inspections around windows, staircases, and ADA accessibility, and like the condition of like the pathways and ramps and things like that, paving, things like that. All of those individual buckets are less than $19 million. So that's not to say that we would just look at one of those buckets and say like that's the one we're taking care of. What we've been willing to commit to and would commit to in a legally enforceable agreement is that we would we would walk through a process that would be very similar to the planning process that we would go through for PACT, whether or not PACT happens. We would do consultation and regular meetings with residents. We would have them meeting with the contractors that could be doing the work, and we would be trying to identify priorities for, if there's a limit on how much money can be spent out, where do the residents want to see it spent and what do they want it to look like? That's going to be a very tough conversation, of course, because we'd be going into it up front saying, we don't have all the money just from this air rights deal. Now, the other piece of this, just to complicate things more, is that a PACT project could, and actually is required to, address that capital repair backlog, but it's not always a guarantee. And in fact, there are often financing gaps that come up in those projects, and we have to fill those gaps. This could be a way to help fill those gaps, but we also think about it as an opportunity to just go above and beyond, clear the capital repair backlog, and hopefully get into conversations with residents saying, we don't have to cut things off the table that you might think of as aspirational, but beyond the minimum threshold that HUD requires. So it's a little bit of a vague answer, but we're committing to a process. We would model it off of what we've done at the more recent PACT projects like Fulton, Elliott, Chelsea, where there was like a group that would meet frequently, have meetings to discuss what the repairs would look like. We'd make priorities, decisions with the residents kind of guiding us, and then address those repairs. And if we don't have the extra money through PACT, that's what we're going to address. Yeah, I know it's only like half satisfying, but that's the reality.
That was helpful. I wanted to get a sense of whether or not there were enough projects, that could be viable projects.
Yeah, there's like a big chunk. I mean, it wouldn't be everything, but a big chunk.
Yeah, and sorry, just one quick thing, since I think Damaris, you really laid out like the weighing the pros and cons. I think it's important to note that these development rights can only be sold to a very limited universe of purchasers. You have to be an adjacent parcel to the NYCHA campus. So this really is the only development site that could potentially acquire those development rights and, result in those proceeds for NYCHA.
Just one last thing I want to say. I'm sorry, Jackie, I
Okay,
promise.
don't worry.
I'll be very quick. I mean,
No, don't worry.
I just really want to encourage some kind of compromise because it seems grossly unfair to benefit one set of tenants while hurting another set of tenants. And that is a very difficult position for all of us, including this committee, to be in. Campos has real issues, but the issues that residents are bringing up to the adjacent buildings are also real, and they cannot be ignored either. Thank you.
Before I go to Olympia, I have a question and also an announcement to make. The public session is already closed. I see we have non-committee member raised hands. I just want to say that I'm sorry, the public session now is already closed. We now is only for the committee members to speak. And also, this question is for Jim. I'm just wondering, like, if you have some data, what is the prevailing sales price of the per square footage in Manhattan? I'm sure this is not the first time NYCHA sells the air rights, but what is do you know, like, what is the average or prevailing per square footage cost for selling air rights?
Yeah, so I don't know the Manhattan average. I have to admit, this isn't the department that I work in at NYCHA, but I do have a little bit of insight into how we come up with that number. So it has to be independently appraised, right? So this has been vetted by an independent appraiser. This is the number that was landed on. I know that there's comps that are looked at. I don't know specifically what they are, but I know that there's kind of like a range of other air rights deals and land sales in the area. What I can't speak to specifically is what is the exact geography that's looked at, but I know that's the process. It's an independent appraiser. They're looking at comparable sales for air rights and land in the adjacent area, and that's how that number is settled on.
Good enough. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have more detail than that.
No, that's very good. Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much for sharing that information. Olympia.
Thank you. So my question is for NYCHA. I mean, I want to understand clearly, this is a development that had 5 years ago, $32 million of backlog of repairs. These air rights just came up as a possibility. It may happen, may not happen. I mean, what is the plan? I mean, because you're an agency, you have a budget, we pay taxes, etc. So what is your basic plan? Like, what is the things that you already have lined up for this development?
So there's a capital projects pipeline for all of our developments. We work with citywide leadership. We have a recent memorandum of understanding with citywide leadership at NYCHA to prioritize repairs at certain sites versus others. So there's a complicated process through which our capital repairs division identifies how money is spent out. But the basic answer is that, you know, we have an obligation to be stewards for all of these properties, and every single one that's funded through the Section 9 program is completely underfunded to the point that we cannot make the repairs at all the locations. I mean, I don't want to mince words. It's not to say that there's not a plan, but the speed at which we can roll out those repairs or prioritize those repairs or do them sweepingly across the city is being extremely limited by the lack of money that is coming in from the federal government. And it's getting worse. It's not even it's even when the funding increases slightly, the problem is it's deferred maintenance at all these buildings. You know, residential buildings, when you defer maintenance, those costs rise exponentially. So, you know, I'm not closing the door on Section 9 funding. I mean, we advocate for more Section 9 funding all the time, but I'm just, I have to be honest when I say we don't have many other options on the table right now. I mean, this is, air rights is something we know we can do, PACT is something we know we can do, and we keep pushing for more Section 9, but we're just, you know, embarrassingly underfunded. I mean, it's a real problem.
Because
a reality.
my concern, sorry,
No, go ahead.
My concern, like, this is a classic robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I cannot, you know, in clear conscience, unless something significant changes here, I cannot endorse this. So, I mean, I'm also concerned about this thing that Jackie keeps bringing up of, like, so who negotiated the air rights pricing? Is this NYCHA? Is it the attorneys of the Tenants Association? How is this negotiation happening? And who will be, you know, enforcing whatever agreements come out of that?
So there's let me break that out into a few different pieces, because the actual air rights price that we settled on, as I mentioned, was independently appraised, right? So that wasn't really to much of an extent a back and forth negotiation. Now, where there was significant negotiation was around the gross air rights sale. How much square footage of development rights would we be willing to sell to MRC? And we had the resident.
By we, you mean NYCHA, right?
Yeah, NYCHA. We're the owner of the development rights. Sorry, I shouldn't say we. NYCHA is the owner of the development rights. And you know, they came to us with the proposal for they wanted us to sell them more. They wanted us to basically almost clear out all of the air rights that we had unused at this site. We sat down at the table with our tenant association leaders, with their legal counsel, with elected officials, and we had a number of meetings, and they kept saying loud and clear that they wanted to see a reduction in the height of the building. They wanted to leave more air rights on the table. There were a number of reasons for that, but one of them mainly was the reduction of height from what the development team was originally asking for. I mean, at the end of the day, the contract for the air right sales is a contract that's going to be executed. It's a sale agreement between NYCHA and the development partner, but we're having negotiations with the tenant leaders at the table as well. And we will enter into additional, you know, legally enforceable agreements that will be a tripartite sign off between the tenant association, the developer, and NYCHA for some of the other benefits that were discussed. But you know, the sale itself is between NYCHA and MRC.
And Jackie, I had a question also for the developer, if I may.
Oh, go ahead.
So one thing that I wanted to understand, since you have already started doing the foundation so that you can qualify for the program that is sunsetting, but this LSRD, you know, change and air right exchange hasn't taken place. So are you like you have a permit and you are working on the as of right version? That's what you're building with this foundation?
We do have, we have a DOB approval and approved plan, permits for what was approved for the as of right. Work was done previously. We're not currently doing work right now.
So what I want to understand is the as of right, because you had in your presentation a picture in which you were showing us the as of right numbers. Could you please read us again, like were we not to approve this, what it is that is being built there?
Sure. Sorry. Exactly in front of me. Apologies. Sorry. So the exact square footage as of right, let's see, I don't have that. One second. So it would be a 17-story building, the same height as the current building that we're proposing. As of right, square footage. Ben, do you know that offhand?
The maximum FAR for an R72 is 6.5. So I don't know what the approved DOB set is, but the site itself.
I'm sorry, I don't have those approval documents handy.
It's 65,000 square feet.
But
so it would.
Can I just clarify? That would only be if it was totally a commercial or community facility building. If most of it was residential, it would be 3.44 FAR.
Correct. Yes.
Right. Well, you can have the maximum envelope is 6.5, and then you can fill it with 3.44 residential, and then the balance commercial community facility. Right.
So your proposal is mostly residential, correct?
Right. And what was the as of right proposal was not 6.5 FAR. I'm sorry, I don't have that exact number in front of me.
So just so that we clarify, so you have started building something that is as of right, and with that you're going to qualify with a 421A, and then if you also materialize this air rights sale, you're going to do this project that we were discussing now. But were you not to get the air rights, you're going to continue and build the building for which you have currently a DOB permit?
I believe so. Yes. I mean, we really hope this.
And this is basically residential, as Lisa said, 17 stories, 65,000 square foot, and it's all market rate.
It would have a significant community facility component. So, perhaps medical office or other uses like that, and residential. It would not be 100. I mean, it would still be seeking the 421A program. So there would still be a 30% affordability, but because it's less residential floor area, there would be a lot less units generated.
Great. But one thing that to clarify, do you have a deed restriction? That's why you're going to have a community facility, or as a result of the fact that you're applying for a 421A?
No, just because, it was a way to, utilize floor area on the site, and there was potential interest in that type of use.
Oh, so in order to go higher, basically, you're going to add that.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, good.
Not necessarily to go higher, but just,
get more FAR.
The site.
More FAR, yep. Thank you. Lisa.
Yeah, I have numerous questions.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll start with the fact that I feel like Damaris hit it right on the head. Like we've got to find a way to compromise here. And it's too big. It doesn't provide either enough benefit for Campos, and it doesn't provide any benefit for the wider community. So I really think we should kick the can down the road and get a commitment from CPC to extend it so we can get more information. But in the meantime, let me just ask a couple of questions here. I'm confused about if you've applied for 421A based on the original plan, how do you know for sure that you will get as many, all 50 units that you're proposing, which is 30% of the more residential building?
Well, we haven't actually applied for 421A. You don't apply until the building is complete. You just want to make sure that you've commenced in accordance with the requirements, which requires that you commence construction prior to a certain date, which is June 15th. So we haven't actually filed a 421A application for this site.
So we don't really know whether we get 50 units of quote unquote partially, not permanently affordable housing.
Well, it has to be 30%. But I can't tell you the exact number because obviously it's approximate and subject to change, but it has to be 30% of the units for us to qualify for the program. That if we're in that program, we have to provide 30%.
And was there any discussion in your communications with the housing authority about doing better than what you would have to do anyway as a 421A project?
Yes, we did have extensive discussions about that and we ran numbers and we basically, the result is that the project, it wouldn't make sense to buy the air rights if we had to provide lower affordability. It just doesn't underwrite. And so that would just mean there would be no deal with NYCHA.
I can speak
any rate.
Oh, sorry, Lisa, I can
No,
speak a little. Oh, I don't know if this is helpful. Maybe they should say their side of what the conversation was like.
Thank you.
That's it. That's my thing.
It doesn't make sense that there couldn't have been some negotiation, maybe not 100% affordable. I heard that in the discussion before, but could it have been 40% or 50%? Like other projects in our neighborhood that have been developed with city participation.
Lisa, can I just interrupt? Jackie, can you watch your videos? One of them, someone's video should be off. I sent.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I sent the message to Susan. I don't know if she's still with us. Someone probably forgot their camera is on, so they're walking around. Cut the video.
Oh God.
I'm not gonna scan to find out.
Susan, can you kick that person out, please?
We just cut their video. Who's the Zoom master? You can cut their video.
I'm not Susan didn't make me a host, but
Susan's still the host.
I'm sorry, I wasn't
your
paying
co-host
attention.
Yeah, Nora, I don't know if you can do it.
Oh, I did it. I did it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't realize I was still.
You know, we all get told about those things, right? Like everybody hears about that moment that somebody got
Never happened.
showed their underwear. This is it. So we finally witnessed it. And,
Where else but
know.
CB3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Lisa, let me try to finish up.
Yeah, I asked the question. I think now Jim is going to respond.
Yeah, I'll just be candid. I don't know. I don't have the specific numbers off the top of my head, but I know that we did an internal study to say, I mean, you know, we share these goals of wanting to have deeper affordability even outside of the property that we own. And we looked at what would happen to the proceeds if we went down to the next 421A tier, just as a thought experiment. And when we ran the numbers, it cut the proceeds coming back to Campos 2 by about 50%. And as the housing authority, we felt like that was too much to give up. You know, I think our perspective is a little bit different than some of the other stakeholder perspectives represented here, but as stewards of the property, we didn't feel like it was an appropriate decision that we could move forward with to take a 50% cut on proceeds that could make repairs at one of our buildings. So
Jim,
that's
can
just
you
the 2
clarify?
cents. Yeah.
Can you clarify how does the program work? Because 50% sounds huge. So just is it because you're negotiating a price for the air rights?
Yep.
They want to construct more.
So yeah. I mean, that's you got it right. I mean, that's the land value changes, right? And the property value changes as you change the amount of rent that's going to be collected at these properties, right? So as you run the math on that, and I don't know exactly what the internal model looks like, to be honest with you, because I don't work in our real estate transactions department, but I know they modeled out whatever the like minimum requirement is under the next 421A tier that has a little bit more affordability. And I all I can relay back was that we found that it would result in a 50% decrease in the proceeds. And then we kind of, at least on our side, shut the door on that conversation because that was too much. I wish I could speak into a little bit more specificity of why there was such a reduction, but that was what the model showed.
If we were to get another month to consider this, you could provide us with that data, correct?
I would have to ask. I don't know what internal modeling we'd feel comfortable discussing. But I mean, well, look, we're talking about $19.5 million, so 50%. I mean, we know the proceeds would be a little bit under 10. Maybe it was around 8. I forget exactly. It was somewhere between the 8 and 10 range. I just forget the specific. But we just it was a lot. I could figure out if it's what we feel comfortable sharing. I couldn't make that call tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Herman?
I can't finish my other questions.
Okay. You have more questions?
Oh, yes, I do.
Why don't we go to Herman, because he's been waiting like a lot for time.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Herman.
Yeah, I've been just listening to everything, and I'm listening to the questions that Olympia and Lisa and Dominic and all those people have. And there's a lot of language from Housing Authority, but there's no clear way of how this project is supposed to work, other than we may be able to get 19 million, and Housing Authority will probably go with can in their hand that GoFundMe to get the rest of the stuff to do this project, right? So that's my experience with Housing Authority or even HPD or stuff like that. You hurry to give us to do a project. They are hurrying to let us decide and do this. They probably hoodwink the people who reside in the building, who is looking desperately for a decent place to live. But there's nothing clear that I could use tonight, either from the developer or NYCHA, of how this project would satisfactorily be done. None whatsoever, and that is in my mind. And I'm not sure where this project will be emulated later on by New York City Housing Authority if we approve this one. Where will it go from here? This is another one that we just sit here for 3 hours and they do not give us any appropriate answers to a plan, and then only tells us we have 5 to 10 days to come up with an approval. We have also known that that is the way the local communities are being used. They know that our final meeting, our board for approval, they know the date. They know how we work. And yet they come up with a date that tells us that we have to make an approval, and nobody knows whether they could give us an extension. I always feel that these agreements talking about affordability, I don't see anything affordable in this project. And the affordability is not permanent, it's temporary for 30 years. I know, working in this community, how 30 years moves so fast, especially in the projects we have done. You know, Lisa and I could tell you, we started project 30 years, seems to just whiz by.
I was there for the rent up of Campos Plaza.
Exactly. And by the way, I just worked with hair rights recently. The average hair, the price is top of depends on the location, but the average is $225 per square foot. So
Sorry, I missed your last part, Herman. You talk about per square footage. What did you say?
I was just involved in negotiation and square footage. The average price of square foot in Manhattan is $225 a square foot.
Thank you. I thought you should be close to 300 right now.
And well, no. The reason is because there's a lot of also non-for-profit organization that has air rights and development rights clogging up the pipeline. Okay. The other thing is talking about foundation. I went to the site today and they're still doing testing. There's guys with monitors and this stuff doing that. So there's no foundation there. And that's all I want to say is that the project is not affordable. If you have to earn, I don't know, affordable to who, but if you have to, one person have to make $65,000 and two people $74,000, I'm not sure who you're talking about in the community that would be able to afford those. Yeah. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Herman. That's
Would
great
it be?
comment.
I took some notes because there were a few questions. Would you like me to respond?
Why not? Sure, Jim.
So
Go ahead.
A couple of things I think that maybe we didn't mention that are useful to know. There are binding legal documents that will run with a number of the benefits that we've described, or not even benefits, just pieces of the transaction, right? Because there is an air rights sale, so there will be a purchase and sale agreement. This is a contract between NYCHA and the private site, right? I mean, this can't be consummated without a purchase and sale agreement. There are also going to be restrictive declarations that run with that site that govern some of the uses there and some of the decisions that are made going forward. It's not NYCHA's site. I'm not going to speak to that beyond that, but I mean that would be a piece of the plan that they have to grapple with. Now, I think the thing that I could speak to the most clearly is the and I want to be careful here because there's active negotiations happening between NYCHA and the legal team from the resident associations and the resident association. So I'm going to speak about this in generalities, but we are absolutely committed to signing off on a legal agreement, right? An agreement that accounts for and memorializes the benefits that we've discussed with them over these past many months that would allow them that if either NYCHA or MRC was not fulfilling their end of the bargain or breaching one of these benefits or otherwise reneging on a commitment, they could take legal action against either entity, against NYCHA or MRC. We don't always do that. We've agreed to do that in this case. We've been working in good faith with the tenant associations and their lawyers, and we're absolutely going to follow through with that. I mean, that's going to be one of the other binding pieces of this. It hasn't been signed yet. We're discussing it. The land use approvals can happen with or without this signed, but we are committed to following that process through as long as the residents want to follow through with us. I mean, that hasn't changed. The 45-day review. I mean, I worked in the community board for a long time. We always found that this was a difficult turnaround period, but this is a statutory requirement, and it's what the review is for non-ULURP. I did come to present in October. It was much vaguer at that time because a lot of these details were worked out with the residents in the interim. But this is the second appearance for this project. Not making excuses, but I just want to clear the record there. And the only other piece I want to say is I think one of the confusing pieces about this, and maybe this is my bias as a NYCHA staffer, is I think the real benefit in terms of affordable housing, I'm comfortable, I don't work for HPD. I'm comfortable not calling 421A affordable housing. It's rent regulated. The rents, are geared towards certain income tiers and they're rent stabilized, but we could stop calling it affordable housing tomorrow and I wouldn't blink an eye. I think the affordable housing, it's 130% AMI. The affordable housing here are the NYCHA apartments. They are permanently affordable. They are the most deeply affordable apartments in New York City, and they are desperately underfunded. So I mean, maybe this is my bias as a NYCHA staffer, but I do think the benefit to affordable housing is the long-term preservation of the 100+ units at Campos Plaza 2 that really need repairs. And I know there's lots of discussion about different ways to find that funding, but today our options are fairly limited, and this is something we have on the table. And I probably shouldn't even be saying that much, but that's my 2 cents on the framing of the affordable housing question.
Thank you, Jim. I'm gonna let NYCHA go next, and then for the rest of committee members, we should try to be precise, be concise about our questions or comments, so we can decide what to do because of time consideration. NYCHA.
I just wanted to say quickly, sort of that this is at the core, it's a question not about the private development, it's a question about what the return on the air rights investment really is to the community and really to NYCHA in some ways, and the residents of Campos, and making sure that we're getting as much as possible out of what is possible today. We don't know where fully funding NYCHA is coming from. We don't know, how RAD and PAC will work in this site in the future. We have an affordability crisis and a housing supply crisis in this city. So it's not often that we get to have some sort of benefits from a private transaction that happens in this city. So my inclination really is that the question to the developer and the question really to NYCHA is, and to the residents is, are we getting enough return on selling these rights? And we've seen some of it. You get the 19 million. I saw some other softer commitments in there. What is real and what's not? What is legally binding and what's not? And that's really, for me, what it comes down to.
Jim, it's a comment, right? Jim, do you want to address?
I guess to me, I want to make sure that the residents are comfortable with saying some of the things that would be part of this in progress commitment document. But I will say it largely consists of the things that were explicitly stated in the presentation earlier. I think without getting into too many specifics, it's things about how the proceeds would be used and what the residents' role in that planning process would be. That would be legally enforceable. It would be things about the dedication of that community facility space, the building height. It's nothing that you didn't see earlier. I don't want to negotiate in public here, and I think that the residents, if they feel like I'm misrepresenting something, should feel free to speak up. But we basically want to memorialize what the developer said they would agree to, and give the residents an opportunity to take legal action if either party does not commit to the height, to the planning process, to the even to the affordability. I mean, I know we were talking about how it's not the deepest affordability, but we would be comfortable capturing that in this I don't know what we call it, benefits agreement or whatever. It's just a legally enforceable document.
Thank you, Jim. Before I go to Damaris, Lisa, and Lisa, Damaris, and Olympia, I have a question for Matt. Matthew, hi, Matthew. Are you still here?
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Matthew. I'm just wondering, what is the chance we can ask CPC for a few more days?
I mean, we can't extend the referral period. That's already set. But like, if you guys are able to send information to me before they meet, I'm obviously going to pass it along. I'm not going to withhold it because it was outside the referral period. I would say though that your full board, I believe it's on the 28th of June. This, with the current timeline, would go back on the 27th. So if there's any way to get me something by that Friday before, that would be the 24th. I could certainly give that to the commission.
Okay. Even though it is not approved by the full board, it'll still be okay?
Yeah, so this is a referral. So it's a non-ULURP referral, so it's a little different than a full ULURP public review item. I understand it'll probably be treated with the same type of approved with conditions or disapproved with conditions resolution. But yeah, of course, I would pass it along to them.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for that clarification.
Jackie,
yes.
you want me to tell you the procedure that would
Yes,
do that?
please.
You would have the exec vote on it the day before, and then it would be ratified by the full board later.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for that clarification. So it's gonna be Lisa, Damaris, Olympia, and Dominic. And please try to suggest what we should do so we can. I'm leaning towards hold it for one moment, but because I think we should comment. If we don't comment, we kind of like waste the time here tonight. Lisa, you are muted.
Sorry, I like that idea, but I do want to ask one other question that we didn't address, and that is, I don't know, it's both to the developer and NYCHA with regard to the issues that were raised by the adjoining co-op. Was there discussion of the placement of the building 10 foot back from 14th Street? Was there any willingness to negotiate that placement?
So you're saying instead of setting it back 10 feet to move it 10 feet closer?
Yes.
No, we didn't really discuss that. I mean, I think from a design perspective, it seemed setting the building back made the most sense. And also, I don't know that that would make a meaningful difference.
Well, they think it would. So would you be willing to do, did I see in a timeline that you are meeting with them or that you have met with them? And
we have met, yes.
And it didn't come up in that meeting?
Moving the building, I personally wasn't in that meeting. I was away that day, but I don't believe so. We did discuss and provide some follow-up information about shadow impacts because we did, hear and understand the concerns about light and air. Basically the shadows actually cast by this building, the incremental shadows over what's cast already would be fairly minimal. So, there are other tall buildings, none as close, but you have the, the building right across the street. You have the existing Campos buildings, which already do cast shadows on the co-op buildings. So this building, although, you look at it and you think it's going to cast, these units into shadow every day, all day, it actually is not that much more than is already experienced.
Would you be willing to meet with them again and discuss this further with them?
Sure. I mean, we're always happy to meet with anybody, who.
And would you do that before we meet again next month?
Sure. I mean, I don't
get a report on what happened.
Yeah, we can meet. I mean, we've been providing follow-up information and there wasn't a subsequent meeting request, but if they ask us to meet, we can meet.
Okay, thank you. I have more questions, but if we're delaying this, then I will stop.
Thank you, Lisa.
So I'll just get right to it. So I'm a little confused. First, I want to say everybody here knows that I'm no best friend of NYCHA, okay? But I think this is not NYCHA's deal. NYCHA's not constructing this. NYCHA's trying to make or take an opportunity to generate revenue from what they already have. So, they're negotiating or their leverage, I guess, in some ways could be questionable. But with that being said, I thought that today's action was about the LSRD footprint and changing that, not to approve NYCHA's development or transfer of development rights resale. Am I completely off in what I believe is happening right now?
These things are connected.
They're connected because they're sharing with us
the full plan. But the truth is that the action today is around the footprint, right, of the LSRD and getting the minor modification, right? That's really what the action is.
Maybe Matt can clarify, but my understanding is that if we don't give them this LSRD thing, they cannot do their transfer. So it is very much connected.
I think if I may comment on that, we have done, this committee has done a lot of land use reviews before, and the social impact or the housing impact is always considered for this land use actions. So I think I don't see the problem of adding that consideration in reviewing this LSRD modification.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I was just trying to get clarity about what the vote was going to be around. And I thought that it was also important in this moment to be fair to the housing authority and understanding that this is not their project, right? I mean, they have some leverage, and maybe that's a, you know, and of course we want to capitalize on that on behalf of the residents. But, you know, we spent a significant amount of time talking about how, you know, the housing authority, and while all those comments are really true at some point or another, I'm just saying that in this moment, that's not the more relevant piece to me, other than what can NYCHA do still in this moment to get us closer to a compromise. And if there is that ability and that leverage, and if these two issues are tied in approving this LSRD, then that's where I think we should focus some of our energy. And I think you should go back, Jim, and you should find out, you know, what else can be done, because I don't think that the trade-off is worth it at this moment.
Thank you, Damaris. Olympia, Dominic. Yes. And I think after Dominic, I guess I'll ask the committee to discuss what we want to do. No more just talking about the content.
Before I do my question, I think Matt was trying to answer to Damaris' question. Do you want to hear from him, Matt from DCP?
Only if you need it. I was just going to clarify what the action is. I know Nora and Jim have done a great job of that, though, but if there's any questions I can answer with that, let me know.
So basically, we were correct in describing it.
Yes. I mean, affordability levels are not something that's captured in the large scale approval. It's a pretty narrow scope of a discretionary action.
No, the air right sale cannot occur if we don't pass this.
If this is not approved, then the air rights cannot go through because you have to have a merged zoning lot. That is correct.
Thank you. So my question is a little bit connected to everything we've been discussing. So my understanding is right now we also have the pandemic that has increased with the inflation of the construction cost. These people were facing 32 million 5 years ago. And now the situation has deteriorated. Plus, there is the inflation of the pandemic. So in order to understand what this 19 million is going to try to fix, is a hole that sounds to me used to be 32 million, but it's upper of 50 million now. Or I don't know, around 45 to 50. So, I mean, we're guessing game here. Fundamentally, the hole, let's say, is very big. And my concern, and to Anissa's point, and is that, you know, there is risks of secondary displacement in that area. That area, 12th Street, is actually, you know, my kids go in that building. They're going to be going to another next year, but this is a building that has a lot of children and families, and specifically Campos Plaza, when we're talking about community engagement, if there is any impact to the after-school program, that is huge for the whole district. Because one thing that is very important that everybody understands when we're talking about this community facility is, sadly, for some weird reason of school segregation, after school, you need to pay for it. And people in this district cannot afford it. Campos Plaza is the only free program they can access if they can qualify. So I really hope that the same way Lisa was talking, like the whole thing of secondary displacement and not robbing Paul to save Peter, etc. I just want to make sure in rushing this deal, that, by the way, we should keep remembering the elephant in the room that Steve brought in there earlier on, that we are talking with a known bad actor in the community. So before, rushing into any agreements, we need for sure to have what Dominic asked, like all our questions asked as they are stipulated in our questionnaire. For instance, the makeup. Let's say they are affordable, but if they are studio apartments, we can't do much of it, right? So there are all these details of, who are we doing this, what are we enabling here? And that I feel we really need to hear from and have a better grasp before we can really seriously take any position.
Thank you, Olympia. Dominic. After Dominic, we need to decide what to do tonight.
Sorry, so I may repeat some things, but I mean, my suggestion at this point is the same as what Lisa is talking about, which is, and what you're thinking, Jackie, which is to push this to next month while we collect more answers to the questions. I'd like to see the questionnaire filled out. And I'd like to see that the neighborhood, the co-op next door is included in conversations and is part of the conversations and not just passively. The sense I got was like, yeah, if they contact us, well,
no,
I'm not going to.
We did meet with them. I was
well,
saying.
I mean, to include them in some negotiations at this point, because
they haven't met with the other tenants. I'm sorry.
What?
It wasn't to you. I was just responding to E. Martin's. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Interrupted.
Yeah. No, with the co-op tenants and the Campos tenants. That and maybe I'm not going to feel comfortable approving this without knowing that they weren't actively engaged. And maybe it won't work out exactly as they want, but I want to know that they're actively engaged, and not just like if they contact us like that. I just have a very, like, fundamentally, I have a very difficult time with this trade-off at this point, that I just can't ignore it, even if it's for long-term preservation of affordable housing. Also, I think it would be good to see, to Damaris's point, a bigger chunk of money negotiated to help make this trade-off, seem like it is worth it, even more so. Also, it sounds like it would be good that we would know potentially by the next time we meet what's going on with if there's any replacement for 421A, and how does that impact anything, if at all.
Thank you, Dominic. As Jim, while you guys were talking about this issue, I just do some random Googling. In 2013, the city sold certain air right near Grand Central to private developers for $250 per square foot. I mean, I'm just giving you some background.
Yeah,
but it's not really important.
Again, it was independently assessed, but also keep in mind that's in Midtown.
Yes. Okay. All right. I understand. Lisa and Anisha, are you guys gonna talk about what we're gonna do, or what you're gonna? Okay, Lisa and okay. First of all, I wanted to say I prefer to move to next month, to the rest of next month, so that we can get more information, and also allow the committee members to send me your comments, as we always do in the past. You guys know I always prefer to do the rest of the next month after the presentation, so that we can have more time to digest the materials and information. Anisha and Lisa. Anissa, you go first.
Can I just ask a clarifying question, just out of abundance of clarity? Are there any repercussions for delaying this for a month in the timeline of NYCHA or anybody else? Are we leaving anything on the table by holding it up, or are we just gaining more time? Which, if it's more time in order to assess, again, the project, which we should be focused on the air rights, for my opinion, but or is it that we are delaying something that will have real consequences?
No, so correct, Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong. If we send in the resolution by 25th 24th, which is the exact before the full board. It's actually okay. We are not like creating any like consequences. This is what I understand. We do that by the next exact before the full board. It should be okay.
Can we clarify with Matt what we would be? It's Susan. Could we clarify our timeline with Matt? So what we're saying is next month, we would vote at the exec as sort of an emergency measure. And the next day, which would be Friday, which I'm trying, I don't even know the exact date, we would be getting information to DCP.
24th, that's what he said.
Okay, so on Friday, the 24th, we would be giving him our vote, and then the full board will be ratifying it the following week, which is fine. That doesn't affect them. But what I want to be clear is to Matt that we will be getting him the information on the 24th.
Are you still here?
I mean, Matt, what is the CPC? When's the CPC? Just got 27th, maybe? I'm sorry that I don't know the details.
Yeah, I think he said 27th, so we need to get in by 24th. I think that's what he said. 28 would be too late.
So I just wanted to clarify that we would be sending it on the 24th and that would be acceptable.
Yeah, and that's what he said earlier, and he might be on the go.
Just wanted to clarify it.
Yep. I mean, if he does not respond tonight, I think that's just what I remember. That's what he said. Lisa.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that we should use the next few days with input that you would get by email after this meeting to put together a list of additional information that we would like from either the developer or NYCHA. But the kind of thing that I've heard so far, just to name some of them, there might be others that people could think of, would be to provide the developer with the questionnaire and get all of that information. That we would like to see as much of the financial analysis of the trade-off of air rights versus affordability as NYCHA is able to provide us. And we hope that they will be forthcoming. To provide any additional information on the same basis on how they arrived at the air rights cost. And I would like to ask for more information on what on a per unit cost that they, or per unit income that they typically get from a RAD deal. So that we could anticipate what might be the benefits that would come from the RAD funding.
Go through
and
that
any
commercial.
information and any information that they might have about what the obstacles might be, or the chances are that RAD / PACT funding would come through, unless Damaris has any answers to that. And that we try to get that information prior to our meeting, and any other information that people think would be helpful before our meeting next month.
Damaris, is that new hand or old hand?
Oh,
New?
I
Okay.
just wanted to ask if we could also find out, like, because my assumption based on what all the negotiation is that NYCHA has set the price at where they've set it in order to negotiate other terms. But what would happen if the affordable units were not included? Would that change this the price that we could ask for, or that the developer would be willing to pay NYCHA for some of the air rights? Like, I'm just, yeah. I don't know if that made sense. Do folks understand what I'm asking?
No, I don't. You say if affordable units not included, then what? Then
What would be the sale price for the transfer of the air rights?
Okay, all right.
Or what?
So if they are not
what is
using the
it in that-
421A, is that what you are saying?
I think that's a good question to ask to the developer right now. So basically, would you still buy, is there a scenario in which you're buying the air rights and you're not doing 421A?
I mean, no, not right now, given the situation. I mean, I think if there was no, fortunately, no affordable housing requirement, the air rights would be appraised at a higher value perhaps. But again, the purchase price is based on a fair market, value.
But I want-
An appraised, an appraiser comes up with that.
You said that the sale price would be higher for the air rights,
Possibly,
right?
I'm not sure. It depends
But then
on how
if
they
you-
are appraised.
But if you still got that bonus from the air rights, then you would construct other units that would obviously generate higher rents if they were.
But there's a trade-off because then you don't have the tax benefit either. So it may actually, the air rights may actually be worth less. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm
That's
not
what
sure
I
how
was
those numbers
trying to know.
work out.
That's what I was trying to get at. Thank you.
Anisha.
I'd like to, for the next meeting, have more information about all the other benefits besides the monetary value of the air rights. There were other things listed, the enforceability of those, packages around hiring, opportunities for folks in the building, et cetera.
Wait, what is it? So other benefit, what was the other benefits that you were thinking about?
It was listed on the slide. We went through it very quickly.
Oh, okay.
There were, hiring opportunities, job
Oh,
opportunities.
hiring opportunities, okay.
Yeah, we can respond to that. I just want, we did a kind of an overview of it. And like I said, I just want to make sure that the resident association would be comfortable with us sharing information that we're actively
fine.
talking about and negotiating in an agreement. But we could definitely share it, with their consent.
Olympia.
So, I wanted to add, to the things that Lisa was reading, Lisa, when you talked about we want to hear from NYCHA as much as they can share of their financial analysis, etc. So, I mean, what I want to understand, because it really sounds very low, this 19 million, right? And my biggest concern, the other big picture concern here is setting a bad precedent, right? Because we all heard it when NYCHA started talking about NYCHA 2.0, and we were all afraid it was going to be a sellout, etc. And so, and maybe you can already answer this, Jim. Like, when you say, okay, it was independently appraised, it was independently appraised once. Is someone vetting this? Is it getting a secondary appraisal? Because it really sounds low for, the bulk and the impact that we see.
I truly don't know. I don't know. Nora, can your team speak to that at any more specifics? I really don't have my head wrapped around the air rights market in Lower Manhattan at the moment.
And I mean, we don't provide an appraisal, NYCHA contracts with a third party to do the appraisal. It's all part of HUD Section 18 approval process for the disposition of the air rights. I think appraising air rights is more of an art than a science, unlike appraising regular property values, because of there are some really unique factors, including an extremely limited market. So I think that is something. And Olympia, the impact of the development is not usually accounted for in determining the value of the air rights, unfortunately.
Okay, so Jim and I guess Martins, you guys know like what you need to provide to us before the next meeting, right? Or do you need me to send you a list? What do you want? What should we do?
I took some notes. A list would always be helpful.
Yeah,
I would just I just want to be very clear and put a big asterisk on that. I did mention like a number of figures where I was just trying to be very clear about our considerations behind the scenes. Some of the calculations and other things that I tried to be transparent about, I don't know how many of them were, formally appraised or formally vetted. So I am going to have to check with, I'm happy to disclose as much as I can, and I will provide all answers that I can. I just don't want to sit here today and say that I can definitely turn around 100% of the specifics you asked for. But to the extent that we can provide answers, we will. I mean, there's no reason I will not make the best effort to get you your answers quickly.
Good, Jim. Thank you so much.
Could you provide, in addition to the notes, which would be, really appreciated to make sure we don't miss anything, could you provide, or is it on your website, a copy of the questionnaire? I'm sorry, we really never received that before this meeting. We would have definitely completed it. Yeah.
Susan, can
We
you?
will send it to you. It's not on the website, but we'll send it to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we need to
throw in, can I just, I think we should make the list, Jackie, and if you need me to help you, I'd be glad to. But I didn't mention the follow-up on the meeting with the co-op board next door.
You did not, right? I think that was Dominic's point.
Right. I noted that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. But thank you for reminding me. I don't have it on my note.
Can I just say, I think that they also have to meet with the residents of Campos together so they can hear each other's issues and work together.
That's a good idea.
And the Maris, are they meeting with both tenant associations or only the Campos 2 one?
You asking me who's meeting?
I mean, I don't know, whoever knows the answer. Like,
no, I think we're saying that they want, we're suggesting that they meet with them, but I'm suggesting that it not be two exclusive meetings, a meeting with the Campos people and a meeting with the co-op folks or the MSR, or what do we call him? I'm sorry. MRC, sorry. Tenants, that it should, that they should also make considerations to have them meet jointly.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that we weren't leaving half of the campus out or whatever it is. Like, is it Campus 1 and Campus 2 all involved? That's what I was asking.
Yeah, all of the meetings we've presented at have had representatives from both Campus 1 and Campus 2.
This is a question I have when I was reading the project descriptions. I should have asked this question much earlier. The transfer actually include both air rights from Campus 1 and Campus 2, and the money only goes to Campus 2. So it sounds not very fair to me. Am I interpret this? Did I understand this incorrectly?
Part of the complicating factors here is that NYCHA is a partial owner of Campos Plaza 1. All right, we're not a majority owner. As far as I understand, I would have to get the specifics about what the Triboro partnership looks like. Yes, some of the air rights would go to or would come from Campos Plaza 1, and again, I'm really not the legal expert on this, but I know the way the particulars of the Triboro preservation deal was structured allowed NYCHA to be the authorized representative for certain air rights that could be used for our benefit, right, at our property. None of this is happening behind closed doors. Ms. Huff, the elected TA president at Campos Plaza 1, is party to all these discussions. The current owner and property manager at Campos Plaza 1 is aware of this, but this is not kind of a loophole or a back door here. I mean, this was always a possibility, and our ability to use those proceeds exclusively at Campos Plaza 2 is definitely, there's definitely no legal issue there. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that Campos Plaza 1 doesn't have the funding need. They're getting robust subsidy through Section 8 and equity investment from their private developer, right? Yeah, so I mean, it's the need is just staggeringly different. Not that everything, I'm sure Ms. Huff would agree, is perfect at Campos Plaza 1, but they're significantly better capitalized than Campos 2.
Gotcha. Thank you. Trevor.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what you said earlier because it's 9:30 and we're going back.
We need to close it. Yeah.
More questions. If we could, in addition to the questions that you have tonight, if we can email them to you and then email them to NYCHA and the developer, and we can move along. Because otherwise, we're going to sit here and I've got 10 more questions, and I just want to ask one more when we're going to discuss this next month also. So if we could figure out a way to close this, get the questions to you in addition to what we talked about tonight, I think it's going to be more effective than one more question I have.
No, I agree. I think we all agree that we want to do that next month, so I don't have to ask for a vote for it. I'm just going to make that decision. move that to next month. So thank you so much, Jim and E. Martins, for joining us tonight. It is a very
Jackie, before we close it completely, just one thing that I want to ask in the documents, if anybody has it, an environmental impact statement, because this is going to be a huge influx of new residents for that tiny lot. So if they have any data that they can share about any analysis they did, I would love to know that.
There should be some environmental review documents attached to the ZAP portal. But if you need us to pull down specifics, just include that in the email and we could send attachments.
I think there's a link on the web, on our website.
Yeah, we did an
Yeah,
both secret EAS review and also a NEPA review.
But we attached everything to the agenda item on our website.
Thank you, Susan. All right, Jim, E. Martins, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and also the TAs and residents from Campos, and also the neighbors in that area. This is a very thorough meeting. I myself learn a lot, and thank you guys for the participation. So I'm gonna close the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So I can take attendance. Trevor, you are
Motion to
muted.
adjourn.
Thank you, Lisa.
Second.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the attendance. Jackie Wong, yes. Herman Hewitt.
Yes.
Thank you. Trevor Holland.
Present.
Lisa Kaplan.
Present.
Olympia Cassie.
Here.
Damaris Reyes. Damaris.
Here.
Damaris,
I'm here.
Okay, I know. Damaris, when I opened the meeting, I saw you were around. Did you hear I was calling you?
No, I didn't hear you were calling me. I think I came on right when you were calling. So I
Okay,
didn't
all right.
hear
Thank you. Thank you. Anisha Stephen.
Here.
Dominic Bird.
Here.
Steve Herrick.
Here.
Okay, great. So we are adjourning the meeting. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Night. Thanks.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.